to remember.
Sore shoulder.
Madsen is howling on James McFadden.
It's basically like rebuilding a car basically after the race, where you take all the injectors out, clean all the pistons, everything like that, take the exhaust pipes off, make sure nothing's scorched, everything like that.
All right, we are back for another episode of the Work Area Podcast. Roy, I've missed that little intro. It's good to be back in the studio, back here at TPE Group. And yeah, luckily enough to have Gavin Migro in studio, mate. Thanks for coming in.
Good on you, mate. Looking forward to it.
No, we're gonna crack this out. It's been a long time coming. You're a hard man to track down. You're a busy man, but yeah, I'm glad we're in. And I'm really keen to get this going. Obviously, a big day for you guys releasing the calendar and stuff like that. So we may as well touch on that first off. So the 2025-26 Perth Motorplex calendars come out. How much work is that? Like it's just looks like an A4 sheet of paper sort of post, but how many weeks' work is that for you guys to get that out?
It's months. We basically pretty much put the calendar. We start working the calendar probably from January, really. Start putting the pieces together to sort of see how it's all going to flow. And obviously the Motorplex, we've got drag racing, burnouts, speedway. The products are pretty stable. So it's you just try to to line them up with interstate, international events across the board. If there's any events that are in WA that are traditional dates that you don't really want to cross over. So they're all part of the scenario. It's actually really stressful though. When you're working with so many different sports, trying to give everyone a bit of the appropriate amount of love and but I think stability now. I think really where we're at now, and unfortunately the drag racing's in recess at the moment with the strip replacement, which is we'll probably bring up a little later. But that in itself, I think what we've got now will probably be very similar for the next couple of years. I think, and I think it's really important to try and get your stability. People can build their lives around it. FIFO workers can work it out. Hopefully get their shifts sort of aligned, and I think we've got that mix pretty right. So, and also allowing micro breaks within the season to allow teams to travel, because I think that's really important to allow teams to the teams that can afford it, or national championships or those sorts of things, can actually head off to the eastern states to participate, because it's vital for the growth of our sport.
So do you have to wait for anyone else? Like obviously I would imagine Bunbury, Albany, Kalgoorlie have to wait for your calendar to be able to work out what they want to do, and all the divisions. Like, are you waiting on anyone to figure out your calendar, or are you the first domino that falls and everything comes from that?
Look, I think we're the first one. We started at Claremont Speedway. My father did it. If the clubs were smart, they would get their city stuff sorted first. Yep. That's where their growth, their exposure, all those sorts of things will come from. And then the country stuff is bonuses, and they are vital. They're really important to have, but not the whole season based around that. So I think the having the city stuff sorted first, and having all those dates aligned, and then it allows the clubs to, the respective division clubs to go out and source country events, to whatever number it is, and we do run a lot of events, but I think one of the challenges that we have right now is our growth across the board. For all we've grown so strong that our competitors across all categories have grown, and that's putting us under pressure. It's a wonderful problem to have, but it's you can't be unrealistic about creating schedule problems. So we've got some challenges there moving forward. But I think what will happen with that is as it grows, I think it'll actually assist some of the country speedways to tap into, the Motorplex divisions, if you like, and I think that's important as well. So it gives them a little bit of a bone. I mean, they usually the classes are not necessarily that cheap, but that it usually brings a spike of crowds and that sort of stuff for them. So I think all those things are in our deliberation as what we do. So we always try to give them enough racing opportunities to encourage investment.
Yep.
And if you do that, then people will continue to invest. But if you dry those things up, the investment dries up. And there's plenty of examples around the eastern states where tracks have closed. Categories were really, really strong, and they've become nomadic gypsies. Running around the country areas, looking for their roots, and it's not possible because they don't have a home anymore, and that's really sad. We've seen there's many examples of that over the years.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like on the wingless committee, like we know like our numbers can be a problem for the Motorplex because we're not the show. Everything needs to. The lifeblood is the sprint cars and the late models, and everything feeds off that. And then if our numbers are too good, then it's almost to our detriment. And then like LS1's growing. Limiteds is growing, like all these divisions, they're a victim of their own success. Like it must be difficult for you because like we know we're almost like if people don't turn up, it's good because then we're like, we might get a show in or it means better racing for everyone. But yeah, there's like a happy medium of numbers in each class. Like it must be hard for you to juggle and because I'm sure you want everyone to race, but
we do.
You need to manage it.
Absolutely. One of the things that, a lot of people probably don't realise, I mean, we have a huge responsibility to the sport. Our venue does. I mean, the amount of mouths that we feed is not only our staff. There is more race shops in Western Australia than probably any state in the country. We're the most remote capital city on the planet. There's more full-time paid crew chiefs here in WA than probably what there is in any state and probably up and down the East Coast.
Yeah.
So we feed that, and our sponsorship revenue, all those sorts of things, all derive from what we do, and based on our success. So, it's not lost on me that what we have to do, but we sometimes have to make some tough decisions on how we schedule our events. And back in the day, there used to be what a thing called restricted nights. And a lot of the people probably listening, if you were an old school Claremont Speedway fan, you'd probably remember that. But, they used to run a couple of times a year. You would get an event where you'd have your one heat and a feature race, but you were still on a big show, and it was restricted because it still gave you an opportunity to participate in front of a bigger crowd. But it also allowed a category to actually remain in because but one of the challenges today, people go, but I've got to wash my car and, like I've got my maintenance is still the same, whether it's one heat, two heats and a feature or whatever it is. But I think, I'd sooner when I raced, if you had one race, I mean, we're not suggesting that, but I'd sooner, if I had one race, I'd be excited, particularly, I mean, I remember running, the World Sprint Car Championship back in 1987, and we were the speed cars and we were the last race of the night. So the World Sprint Car Championship happened first. The place is full. Yep. And the speed cars come out as the last event, and the race. And I was a rookie and just absolutely loved and was in awe of what we just witnessed. And to get to race in front of the crowd because they weren't going anywhere because the place was packed, So we got to race in that and to showcase our class. It was replayed on Night Thunder and all those sorts of things. So, they're more important in my opinion for the greater good. Sometimes you have to take one for the team and for the greater good because we are also in the entertainment business as well. So
that's my thing is when we talk about this. Well, we need the Motorplex more than the Motorplex needs us. Every division in the state wants to be there, so whatever you get, you take. But enough of that, mate. I want to get into just quickly to your racing career because I just want people to know, like, what and for you, are you a racer now that does a general manager, or like have you been a general manager along that you used to race? Like, I just want people to know you raced.
Yeah,
like you could drive. You off the front row, big shows. Like, I'm not sure maybe if there's a newer crowd to it, whether they're fully aware that you were a racer like initially. So just, I guess, a snapshot of your racing career.
So look, I started racing speedway when I was 15. I before that I did a bit of motocross. I had one of the first BMX bikes in Western Australia.
Yeah, right.
Funnily enough, fabulous Johnny Fenton was the forefather of BMX here in Western Australia, and and Johnny bought a guy by the name of Blair Shepherd, God bless him, just passed away recently, and he was the father of BMX in Australia out of Queensland. And he had a son, Scott, who's still running they're still in BMX business, would you believe?
Yeah, right.
Biggest distributor, I think, of BMX bikes in Australia, have been for, well, I'm only 21 now, but not. But, so when I did BMX, Scott Shepherd was the Australian champion. He come to Perth with Johnny, brought him over to showcase, and we used to run, I'm pretty sure it was Wednesday nights at the old Clemnane Honda in Kenwick.
Yep.
And and I had this old, crappy pushy, and it was a right bucket of shit. And then one day Scott comes and he puts on this show, and the people are all amazed. And John's got all these mongoose bikes and all that sort of stuff going on. And Scott had this bike called a Jag. And next, after the event, it got wheeled over to me and they said, "Oh, this is your bike," and my dad bought it for me. And I was doing a bit of motocross. I think I was 12 or whatever, and thinking, how amazing is this?
Yeah.
And to have this bike, and it had those tough wheels on it, and it was chromoly bike. It was just light, and it had orange tires on it. And boy, did I get the piss taken out of me when I rode it to school one day. Which I did it after school because you'd get the shit punched out of you. But and then this bike had white tough wheels on it. It was just amazing. Candy apple brown. I remember it vividly. I wish I still had it. The stupid thing that we do in life. But so we did that BMX, and like I said, a bit of motocross, and had in juniors, and rode like XR 75s and then CR 80s and stuff like
perfect.
that. So all great stuff. And then my brother, he was older than me. He got up to 125s, but it wasn't really for me. I broke my arm racing BMX, and then sort of had to park it up for a little bit. That was sort of a 12-month thing, and then. My dad went to America in 1982, and I went with him. He pulled me out of school, and we went off to follow the world of outlaws, and to contract some drivers, and that was the precursor to the Bob Trossel days, and to be an impressionable 14, 15-year-old to go and see that. Was just amazing. Went to the Knoxville Nationals, and I, we were at this motel in Des Moines, and Bob Trossel's sitting in the room with Dad and having a few beers, and they're sorting out their deal for the coming season. And the sort of great memories. And when I got home, I said, "Geez, Dad, I wouldn't mind racing." And it was pretty silly, really, because I should have probably been thinking about that when I was there, but you just don't. And could have got all the safety equipment and all the stuff we did, but. So we started looking around, looked at go-karts, and I wanted to do something four wheels, a bit safer, I guess. And I had a look around, and I thought, geez, yes, go-karting. I mean, it's a great sport, all that sort of stuff. But for me, it was just like, it was so long. It was a marathon. Mm-hmm. For me, it was sort of like a boring scenario for my mum and dad. They're busy people with running the Claremont Speedway and stuff like that. So we probably didn't need that additional time, and that's what I was thinking anyway.
Yep.
And then we went to Bibra Lake one day, and Shane Murphy had started racing Formula 500s with his dad. Bought a car, and they had a mechanics race. And next thing you know, I'm in Shane's race suit and pulled his helmet on, and went to this mechanics race, and ended up winning the mechanics race. So I was 15, and I thought, hey, this is me. And so I started sniffing around looking for cars and stuff like that, and and very grateful for the Formula 500 community to get around me. And I bought a car from Brian Mullings. I'd started a mechanical apprenticeship, which I didn't finish, but at Mckain Ford in Morley, and so I bought this car from Brian, and it was $600. And in 1983.
Not anymore.
No. And my dad had an engine. He used to, obviously at the Speedway company, and he owned a few Speedway bike engines. And so we got one of those. It was a Glyn Taylor engine, and Glenn Doyle had went on to win Australian championships and rode internationally and stuff like that. So I ended up with this engine, and then I bought another engine and then started racing, and won Rookie of the Year in my first year, and that was pretty cool. And the good thing about, it was we had to start at Bibra Lake, and the sad thing about Bibra Lake not being there, or some form of we've got Allenbrook, which is great, but the beauty of the Bibra Lake scenario was when you're a Formula 500 racer, you sign up, you have to participate there before you get your competition license.
Okay.
So basically, their calendar year for some reason was over 2 years, but it was not in a calendar year, so they had two parts of the season, and so we would race and then end up being before you got your competition license to go, which means you could run blue ribbon events or state titles. So, or before you could go to Claremont, so you had to actually do reasonably well before the
proving grounds.
Yeah, and it's just so good. I mean, that's what Speedway's about. There's no participation medallions. You got to either step up or cop it, basically. And then you get to Claremont, and then you had at 5:45 on a Friday afternoon, they had an event called the Encourage Race, and you had to race that before you could make it into the main program. So you'd get there, and we're racing on, I'm telling you, slop like this.
Yeah, start of the night.
It taught you how to take the tear-offs off. It taught you how to do the stuff. But thankfully, I never not made the race meetings. So once you got into the main show, you're in there. You didn't have to go through the Encourage races anymore. And but it was great because that's what Speedway's about. I was 15 years of age. I'm racing. You have to race against adults. Yeah. You get taught the right way to do it, and nothing was handed to you. You had to achieve, and then I think it was the second year. I think the first year we went away, went to Newcastle, ran the Australian title over there. Didn't make the show. Came back. We ran short circuit. So short circuit was left and right hand turns. So
where was that?
Yeah, in a place called West Wyalong in New South Wales.
Okay,
and. We had this. The Formula 500 Club had this bus, and it would fit 6 Formula 500s inside, and then it would tow a trailer, which we put 2 other cars on it. So 8 cars, and all the drivers and crews and that sort of stuff would just go in this bus. And flat out, it's doing 55 kilometres an hour across Australia. It took days, like weeks. It was like a slow boat to China, and
that's what it takes. That's what it takes.
Yeah, but it was just a cool thing. I mean, I didn't even have a driver's license, and thankfully the time's okay, so I can probably say it now. But I was 15, 16 years of age, and Easter of that year going to the Australian title, and at midnight to dawn they'd throw the bloke who didn't have a licence on a bus into the driver's seat while they all slept. So
wait, you had a licence? You did the encouragement race? You did Bibra Lake? You had a licence, just not a truck licence.
so yeah, we had that, and it was it was great. So came back. The next year we went a lot better, get better again, more experience, and then went to the Australian title at Murray Bridge and ended up finishing 3rd in the national championship. So in my second year, and then the year after, I got a few opportunities to have a drive of a speed car with Kim Ledger. I was working for him at the time, and he said, "Oh, do you want a couple of drives?" I had a couple of drives, and with the view of next year stepping up, and so I did the 3 years in formulas, and then with the dabble of speed car runs towards the back end of the year, and then the full rookie season in my 4th year of Speedway. So I was got to do rookie of the year again, and won the, what was it called, the Batavia Cup in Geraldton.
Batavia Cup.
Yeah, in Geraldton, and I think that's where a lot of country speedways probably get it wrong. I reckon they should be doing stuff that actually depicts their town, what it's about, their
trademark.
Yeah. And I think they should be getting into it, because the fans get, or the local community get ownership of it, So, but anyway, I digress. And
no, mate, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and the speed car thing was great. Loved it, great grounding. And then at the end of the year, Kim had a team. It was some of the listeners might remember the Mobile Road Emotion speed car team, and it was a 3-car team. There was myself, Graham Jones, and Trevor Henderson, and cars were magnificent. A white car, blue chassis, white car, Mobile One sponsorship. The first time in motorsport, they just got involved with Brock, and then we were sort of the next ones to in that same time.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. We had our helmet, we had the race suits like Brock did, our Mobile One race suits, and had the helmets all painted exactly the same as his stuff. So it was a pretty big deal, and to have that in your first year of speed cars. But at the end of that season, Kim was just thinking, his business was getting busier, and he just said, look, we can't run 3 cars, so he went back to Graham Jones, and rightly so. Graham was probably the number one driver in the state, certainly probably the country, and he ended up not long after that won the Australian title, so the decision was right. But and then I sort of, I sort of almost went to go back looking at Formula 500s again, because I thought that's really my wheelhouse from a financial point of view. And then I got a phone call from Martin Lawton, taxi driver from Nollamara, and Martin's still involved now. And Martin said, "Do you want to come and drive my sprint car?" And I went, "Cool, yeah, let's do that." So we went to the winter tracks and raced at Northam and Ellenbrook, and just bopped around the bush in the winter. And then he said, "Look, we'll just to see whether we gel or whatever." And at the end of the off season, he said, "Look, let's go to Claremont, and I said, "Oh, look, yeah, I absolutely 100% I want to go, but I think we really need a new car." Martin, and I'm not poo-hooing, it was a great opportunity, but the car was, Martin built it himself, and the chassis, and it had a like a power assisted shaft steering box, and she was a bit not like, it was a manual steering box with a power assisted shaft, like a tractor type scenario, and it was pretty tough, but it was like, again, great grounding, taught me some stuff. Yep. So Martin, to give him his due, he went out and bought an OTR car, and that it's such a cool thing, like that. And Ian Bradford become a great mate of mine, and the car he was driving for Ken Marriott at the time was chassis number 68, and the car that I got was chassis number 67 of these OTRs, which was a John Sidney built car out of Victoria. I guess based on a Stanton, or Challenger type scenario. And so we went out and ran the first ever World Series race in the November. So we started in October, got to November. World Series sprint cars comes to Claremont Speedway, the very, very, very first ever round in the history of World Series sprint cars.
What? So you're 4 weeks in?
Yeah, but about that,
Okay.
And so I've gone in there, and we 4 weeks. Yeah. So we didn't really qualify that good, but we were sort of competitive, and then we were in. We did okay in the heat races. Then we got to the feature race. To the B main, because we didn't make the show, and I was running in a sort of a transfer spot, and I think, geez, I'm going to we'll make this race. This will be pretty cool. And then went off the end of the straight and had a major steering malfunction and sailed her on into the fence and flipped me backside off. Made national television. They probably couldn't use the interview because they didn't know what I was talking about. I give my head a fair old good whack, and upside down there.
Rung your bell.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, a low back seat. Took the headrest off on the first flip, and come to rest. And I'll be honest with you, it's sort of a bit of a funny story, really. I'm upside down. I've opened my eyes, and I'm thinking, shit, you've just gone and killed yourself, you idiot. Like, you're in a sprint car now, and you're dead. And all I could see was white. And I thought, geez, this is not good, And then I heard this kid saying over the fence, he goes, "Hey, mister, are you dead?" And I went, Jesus, bloody hell, I've taken someone with me,
Dragged one along.
Yeah, and so I'm upside down there, and I realised I was actually steering straight into the wing, because we'd rolled over and landed in the wing.
Crushed it.
Yeah, and this little kid's going, "Hey, mister, you dead?" And he says, "Well, I hope you're fucking dead," So I pounded the belts out. I thought, I'll give it to this little turd, and I undid the belts and fell onto my head and sort of wiggled my way out and stood there. And anyway, I walked off, and we about half an hour later, my car owner come out, and he was a little bit upset that I just tore his car in half, and he said, "Oh, you should have just stuck where you were." And I said, "Mate, the steering broke." Yeah. And he actually, I'll save him the embarrassment, but there was a little thing that he should have done, which he didn't do, we spoke about, because we were loading the car up. But I love him, and Martin's a great fellow. He's still involved now, and so we did that, and. It's quite funny, because after that race meeting, we car put on the trailer. We had an open trailer then. He used to tow it with an old XD Falcon old taxi on gas. And she was a full pro deal.
Yeah.
And my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, made us our crew uniforms, and had just a motley crew of guys helping out. And Martin fixes the car on the trailer, and he lived across the road from the Nollamara police station, and we'd leave the car on the trailer because he fixed it, and we didn't really have a garage. It was just an open carport. So we worked on the car, and he got the thing straightened and put the car all together on the trailer. We never took it off, and you just wouldn't do that now, but it was what we did then. And so we got it all fixed and went down the next week, in one of those restricted nights, funnily enough, first heat, I'm on the front row, rolling around ready for the start, loaded it up, on the brake, on the gas, ready to go, jumped on the gas, and things shot about 20 feet on the infield and spun out and didn't even get a heat race. The race just kept going. And I said, Martin, what have we done? He goes, don't worry, we'll be right, we'll fix it. So he fixes it all up and adjusts the chassis, with torsion bars and stuff like that, and adjusts everything. And we were it was restricted night, so the top guys are at the back and I'm a rookie, so they put me on the front row and I'm rolling around ready for the start of the race, and loaded the brake up, and race goes green, and I hit the throttle and the thing just turned hard right, and I centre punched the guy alongside of me and stuck him in the fence, and then drove around left hand down for 20 laps and won my first feature race. So so pretty exciting. So it was just full left hand drive, and I've been running a speed car, so car being tight didn't worry me, and it was so exciting to be in my first year, and after a month and a half or whatever, a couple of months, we'd won a feature, and we probably should have won about 4 or 5 that year, but our motors were a bit how you going, and very, 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 very tight budget. And we were sponsored by Marco's Pizza, and they look after us with food and stuff like that. But they were great sponsors with the money that they gave us, and we had mobile sponsorship, and we had a whole raft of things that were helping us out. And it was a great start to the career. And then after that, I started getting more and more different rides and better quality rides, and doing really, really well. And I think, we went on to, we drove for Ken Marriott the next year, funnily enough, in the car, chassis number 68, the one, the Black Bonds of Bradford car, number 6 car, but we'd become number 7. And,
I'd seen the 7.
Yeah, and then we got my own car, for another car for a bit, and then with some support of people, a whole heap of people. And then, drove for the Wojlerski brothers out of Collie. Beautiful car, absolutely magnificent car, beautiful, a great quality equipment, just a wonderful, Henry and Johnny and Ian and Teresa King, they were Collie coal miners, funnily enough, and they own the Mitre 10 in Collie, and they looked after me, and I ran there for a couple of seasons, and just unfortunate. I was probably a little hard on engines, but if there was a weak link in the engine, I'd find it. But I guess the engine wasn't strong enough. So but how that come about, it was really interesting. My uncle, Mel, just passed away recently, but he was the one of the head guys at the Sunday Times in the printing side of it. So they'd print the newspapers, and he gave a job to a guy by the name of Graham Jones, not the speed car Graham Jones, but another Graham Jones, who ended up creating a company called Southside Engine Centre, and Graham always wanted to sort of pay it forward when he possibly could, and he saw something in me, and he was right into drag racing with Zapp's Rat and all that sort of stuff. So Graham rang me up one day and said, I'd like you to drive the Wojlerski car, and then Henry and Johnny put me in, and so the rest was history on that scenario. And then we did my own car a little bit, struggled a little bit, like financially, it was a bit tough, but and then got a drive with Brian Sadler at Performance Modifications, and Brian, God bless him, he's passed away a couple of years ago now, but Brian was a great fella, and he had, I think we had 4 or 5 cars, like 7 motors, all that sort of stuff, but Brian was pretty stuck in his ways on how they should be, but it was really cool though, because we got to do that and race for him, and won a heap of 360 races. Didn't really do much in the open competition stuff, even though we were competitive. Just had mechanical issues, And then we got a phone call from Jeff Kendrick and said through one of his sponsors, and Bronte Howson, who's the president of the East Perth Footy Club, believe it or not, still is today. And he had a company
is that
called
what the link is? Yep.
Yeah, so BBK at the time, BBK Wholesale, AmCap, all that sort of stuff. That's what it ended up becoming. So we ended up in the Kendrick ride, and which was just a blessing because it was funded well, the cars were good, huge, really strong engines, and then first night out, Victory Lane. I funny enough, a little bit before that, I had a couple of crashes, during those things, and end up with, and not because of the crashes, but it was circumstantials. But I end up with Crohn's disease, and so which I have. It's one of those things. There's no cure for it if you've got it. I'm just a high functioning Crohn sufferer, I guess, but which is a inflammatory bowel disease, and so I was driving for Jeff, and then I got crook, and I thought, oh great, finally get a ride that's funded well, and Jeff goes, look, just park her up for a bit, and you get yourself right, and foolishly, I think 2 weeks after I had a bowel resection, a foot of bowel taken out. Yep. I'm sitting on the dummy grid at Kalgoorlie for the World Series race. We ran fifth there, and then went to Claremont on the Friday night and ran fifth there, and we were pretty strong. And then the next night at Bunbury, I couldn't hang on anymore. I had nothing left. I used to race at about 85 kilos, and when they had the operation, I was down to 65 kilos, so I was pretty weak and had no strength, and So, but mind games are really powerful. But it's really funny because I did a lot of stuff, whether it's kooky or not, but I don't really care. It's the story, and I was so unwell that I took up meditation to try and see if you could heal yourself, all those sorts of things, because I just needed to. But I was actually doing it just to get back racing. I mean, how stupid, but, there's probably other things about living would probably be a smarter thing, but, I just live for it.
Mate, there's no more living than racing.
That's true. And so we did that, and I dreamt that I was going to win a big race, and I was going to, it was going to be a big race. It was going to be on the last lap, last corner scenario. So I had these dreams, and it kept recurring all the time. And then we had Speed Week at Claremont, and we'd run at Bunbury, and we had Randy Hannigan and Kenny Jacobs, and these guys were over, and we qualified really well. We were running. I think we started on the second row or whatever in the feature. We sort of got going and got pretty much into second straight away, and we were just running with Randy, and the old Hurricane was doing a great job up front, and we were just pressuring, and in the end, that white flag came down, and we rolled around the outside and hit the front, and won the race. So right. It was amazing. Look, it was my greatest speedway moment from a driver point of view, to have that. I actually thought the engine blew up because the roar was just unbelievable, but it was actually the crowd.
Right.
It was amazing. Claremont's crowds were just ridiculous, but we're starting to rival those crowds now, which is great. But what do
you mean? Only just starting to rival it now? How big were the Claremont crowds?
Oh, they were over the last couple of years. Quidana's been matching them, but there was regular 10,000s, that sort of stuff. Yeah. And look, back in the day, there's lots of rumours about bigger crowds than that, but 10,000 is a lot of people. It's a lot of people.
Well, just funny you mentioned. So Dane Kingshot sent a question in. He reckons, how many times a week do you watch Rapid Images video of you passing Randy Hannigan around the outside?
I've got it on replay, Dane.
There you go, Dane. There's that one ticked off. They're the questions at the end. I can scratch that one from the list. But that's an all-time story, though.
It is.
That is elite.
Yeah, I mean, and it was so cool because Channel 10 came and spoke to us, Channel 7 come and spoke to us. The TV stuff was ramping up. It was replayed on Night Thunder, and it was just a great time for my racing. And but again, we had some great sponsors, great supporters. Revolution Race Gear gave me all my stuff. We had RI helmets and Bell helmets over the different times of that through that period, and so we were very well looked after, and and well resourced for that period, then we end up winning Speed Week with Mark Wells, We after that we ran an Australian title. Unfortunately, in that same year, it was such a great year. But I went to the Australian title at Mount Gambier. Mount Gambier, and end up making the race, and then end up getting crashed in the first lap, and then there was a full red. And
Who was it? Who did you?
It was a guy by the name of Barry Lawrence.
Bazza.
Yeah, so he basically, someone turned him around or whatever, and he wrote a thing, and I went into the corner, and I went in, and I probably should have parked it up right then, because he did a wheel stand backwards, and my head hit his torsion tubes, it sort of poked inside the side of the car.
Said g'day.
Yeah, and I was in Gaga land, and Jeff comes over to me. He goes, "We'll fix her up." So he had to put a bird cage on it, and it still had the splines in our chassis. It actually put the splines in the chassis where it hit me in the head and all that sort of stuff. So I was probably concussed, I would imagine, pretty bad,
Yeah.
And Jeff goes, "Oh, we'll just tighten this up and you'll be right for the thing." I said, "Oh, I think you'd better free her up, mate. I don't think we're going to make the distance if you don't free her up." And he goes, "No, you'll be right. Just don't take your foot off the gas." And so we got going, and we were a couple of laps in, and then we started getting to lap traffic. Like, we were still at the back of the field, and Brazier goes roaring past, and Tatnall, and I moved up the racetrack, and then biked and tagged the fence, and then flipped. And Jeff goes, "You took your foot off the gas." I said, "I figured, Jeffrey, when we're here, there's no coming back." So and then unfortunately, when we came back to Perth, I truck broke down. We missed a race meeting. And then the next week was state title, and then I got badly hurt. I had a big wreck with Brazier, and fractured the scaphoid bone in my hand, and fractured my back. So that was it. So our season was amazingly good, and then just a bit of trauma with the Crohn's and operation, and then getting busted up and had to have an operation. Got a pin in it, doesn't work properly. But that's okay. They're all memories that,
With all that, do you think there's more opportunity back when you were talking about this with the amount of rides, or is there that same opportunity to get drives now? Like, it just seems like there was people calling you. There's a taxi driver with a sprint car. Like, is there the same opportunities now as there was back then?
Look, it's just different. I think there is opportunities now. I think there's more car owners now. I'm not saying you're lucky. The harder you work, the luckier you get. But we were. It was just a great time. I mean, there was some really great races that were when I started, and then moving through, there was young guys like at the time Stephen Arrigo, Shane Murphy, Mark Wells. But then there was legends. I mean, I got to race against Alfaro Gallo in his last ever year.
Okay.
So that's cool, and Lee Foster was that sort of era. So they were great eras, but there was only a few car owners, Tony Matter, those guys, Ray Geneve ended up coming back to racing. So there was only a few car owners, but in this era there's more car owners, but there's a lot of good drivers out there too, and I think, if you had the opportunity to transfer your time from now to, from then to now, I mean, would you take it? I mean, and, age, all those sorts of things, God, I tell you, it'd be cool. It'd be cool right now. I look at it, I'm a racer at heart, and I look at the cars, and I can sort of pretty much still feel what's going on, and I can critique a guy and give him a bit of advice and stuff like that on where they're driving and stuff like that. So we know the track better than anyone, probably done more laps than anyone, even though we're not racing.
Yeah.
But, so those things are really, really important, so, but, we over the racing career, it was great. We ran the first 3 years at Kwinana, won a few 360 races, and we probably should have won a few open competition events, but leading and had some things go wrong. Did a number of Eastern State runs. One of the cool things, I guess, probably in my second year racing, I went to the Australian title at Canberra. Really shouldn't have gone. I mean, silly. I didn't have any money, And I said to my crew, I said, right, one of the guys, he had a Nissan Patrol. I said, hey, mate, do you want to, this was 1989, I think, 1990, something like that. And I said to him, hey, we want to go to the Australian title. He goes, good, yeah, that'd be great. I said, okay, well, you got to provide the car to tow it. He goes, yeah, okay. I said, well, and you got to put 500 in. And he goes, yeah, we're in. So my uncle put 500 in, and this guy Craig, his name was, he put 500 in, and then I said, look, I'll get us home. And I'm thinking, how are you going to get home? You don't have any money, So we towed across there, and
Sounds like Rowie.
yeah, and we got to Canberra, and it was the travel money. We got the travel money to go to Canberra, and we didn't make the race. It was probably one of the worst Australian championships, in the history of the game, and the track was, really bad. I mean, the poor buggers just didn't get it right, and probably listening to too many people. They should have just stuck to what they know. Yep. So it was a terrible title. Then after that, we drove to that was where we met Gary Warren, Jeremy Warren, who races 360s now. We met him over there, and he said, "Why don't you come and stay? Where you staying?" I said, "I don't know." And he goes, "Well, come and stay at my house in Portland." So we drove across there, went across to Mount Gambier for the first night, which was the precursor to the King's Challenge, I guess. And we qualified, I think like 12th there, and then end up running 6th. So that was really cool to go to Mount Gambier and sort of, and the legend of that track was a guy named Bill Barrows. And Billy was one of the founders of that track, but he was a gasser, and brutal on you. He would give you the short back and sides, left, right, and centre. He'd just clean you up. But great racer and Hall of Famer, all that sort of stuff. So I'm dogfighting with Billy, and on the last lap, he's chewed me into the fence, and I thought, okay, well, I guess 6th is not bad. I was 5th for a little bit, and then the next night we go to Warrnambool. I'd never been, hadn't seen it. We rolled out we actually, funnily enough, as I went across the line, we actually dropped a valve on the engine, and so we were thinking, what are we going to do? But we had a guy that lent us an engine to take, and it was in the back of the station wagon of the Nissan Patrol. And when we got to Warrnambool, we had to pull the motor out and put that in, and the deal was if we used it, we just had to pay a fee for the use. And so we went out, hadn't even seen the track before, rolled out the gate. Doug McPherson, who's my engine guy, and he was the one instrumental with the engine. He built the engine that Ron Cricky won his first Australian championship with at Claremont Speedway in 1985, and in the Bunbury Toyota 99 car. And Doug said, I said, Doug, we haven't got to warm the engine up. And we were running Mobil 1 oil. It's thin, it's cool. He said, just get in there, just do one lap on the infield and go. Because what happened when they did the marble draw, because I wasn't at the drivers' meeting, I had to go first.
Okay.
So we went first, and I think we were quick time for ages. And again, never seen the track, sitting there. And then we had a heat race with Gary Rush. It was a dog fight. And there used to be a magazine called Oval Track magazine that John Evans wrote for, and he used to do a thing at the end of every season, like a gongs scenario where you'd award these like fictitious things. But he said the race of the year was Gary Rush and Gavin Migro at Warrnambool, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool,
Little tip of the cap there.
Yeah, and it's cool because Gary Rush's birthday last week, and I messaged him, and it's so cool to have your racing heroes messaging you back, and so anyway, we got to the feature race, and we were having a few little issues with the magneto going off a little bit, but we ended up leading the feature for half race distance, and then had a dogfight with Danny Smith, World of Outlaw guy.
Yep.
So we ran side by side with him for ages, and end up finishing second to Danny, my first ever drive at Warrnambool, and that was pretty cool. And then the next night the track changed, and we were complete dog shit, but we made the race, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, it was good. Great.
If you had to, one achievement, you could only tell, you had to explain your career in one night, what would that night be? What would be your showcase night?
Speed Week.
Yep.
That Speed Week victory at Claremont.
Randy Hannigan,
yeah.
What is Rapid Images?
So
is that the old coverage?
Yeah, Rapid Images was a little video company that was created by Brad Steele and Wade Oranger.
Okay.
And they had this little video company that was in their house in Osborne Park.
Rapid Images.
And they would do the video, and then after every race meeting they would film it, and then after every race meeting they'd commentate it, and then they would sell it to the teams for video, so you can buy your replays.
Yeah, right.
So it was a great service, and Fat Rat's still around, is still bopping along, and Wade's obviously gone on to bigger and better things, and he was working for Claremont Speedway as well, so they had a great time. So they created this little video business, Rapid Images, and it was good. So we all the races were replayed, I guess, on video back then, and or you could buy them and then get them to do copies for you and send them off to your sponsors and showcase them what we were doing.
Mate, the first of the kind for that. That's pretty sick. But I hope everyone's learnt a little bit. Like I learnt a little bit. I knew you'd won races. I knew you'd competed with the best. And I just want to make sure before we cover off what you're currently doing that everyone knows, like, when you have a point of view, where it comes from. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you're guessing or anything like that. Like you've been there and you've done it. So, I guess the Perth Motorplex now is just the lifeblood of the sport. Like I said, like you spoke just earlier about how the crew chiefs is getting paid in the shops. Like I spoke about it when the Nash boys have opened up that specialist components. Like we're having Speedway businesses open up when what I can see everywhere else Speedway businesses are closing. Like the sport is flying here, and I guess the Motorplex, like, man, we're so lucky to have it. You work there every day. That's your office?
Yeah, that's the office. So I worked at Claremont Speedway. I worked at Revolution Race Gear Go Gear was a job previous to this, to working for the Speedway company, and Wade was working for Claremont Speedway. He decided to go to America to chase his dream, chase the dream of running events in America and bring some real Australiana to the American race product, because it's pretty crappy. Like at that time, it was not that good. I mean, they've certainly stepped up amazing. The racing was good, but the actual show was not.
Okay.
So Wade was wanting to. He saw a niche there that he could put his stamp on stuff, and he was at a track called Millstream, which was originally owned by and built by El Baltus, who owned Eldora.
Mm-hmm.
So Millstream was in Findlay, I think Findlay, Ohio, something like that, and not far away from Eldora. But he went over there and ran that track, and they changed the name to Flag City. And Wade did some amazing. He got Jeff Gordon there when he was NASCAR, and ran some big sprint car shows. And Wade, wore like my dad did, like the trousers and the shirt with the tie, stuff like that, really the showman sort of stuff. And and then after a period of time, he wanted to come home. So, but I got the opportunity to go and work for Claremont Speedway. So I was racing, and then I got the opportunity to work in the business. So I was doing sales and marketing. So I get to sell the sport, dealing with the media people and trying to do that and sell sponsorship. So, and we did pretty well. Claremont Speedway was an institution, so it was not a hard sell. It was just about building relationships, and really the conversations were just talking about racing, and it was so cool because in my first time in my life I could talk racing all day and not get into trouble. It was just
it's your job.
Yeah, and I've been doing it since I was in primary school. So. So we did that, and I think it was at the end of the first year that I was working there, and my dad had been to the Royal Agricultural Society. He came back. It was on a Monday after our grand final night on the Friday night. So it was a Monday morning. He come back and he was very ashen and very very pale. And I said, "Oh, you going, Dad?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm." He said, "We're in a bit of strife." He said, "The Royal Agricultural Society said it's all over. We're done." And I sort of, "Oh, yeah, good on you, And Dad was not, he's a great funny guy, but it was not much of a practical joker. And I thought, well, it's a pretty shit-house joke, Dad, And he goes, "No," he said, "they've told us we're out. We're done." And so I'm thinking, geez, and not even thinking, but purely selfish. I'm thinking, shit, I've just started this job and now I haven't got a job. And then I thought, hang on a minute, we haven't got a sport. Like it's now stopped. There's no see you later. There's no goodbye. It's just like it was really done nastily. Like it was. Okay. It was nasty, and just to sort of say, well, you're finished, done, get your shit out and leave.
And it must have been like 10,000 is a lot of people. So Speedway must have been huge at this point.
Yeah, I mean it was a roller coaster. I mean some of the bigger events were big, and then the other ones were just pretty horrible.
Yeah, but that's standard.
That's standard. It depends what was on, Yep. So, but sprint cars were kings then, as they are now. And so those things were pretty it was really tough. So the first call that Dad made was he used to give a season ticket to Richard Court, who was the then Labor premier, and he was a local member for years. So Dad had always given him a season ticket just as a token of appreciation, and just at least maybe he had some access or needed not a favour but a conversation, or at least
was
open
this
the door.
smart business?
Yeah, and so my dad rang and said, just like to leave a message for the Premier. It's Con Migro here from the Claremont Speedway, and what's it about? They said, and Dad said, look, the Royal Agricultural Society said we're out, we've got to go. And they said, just one moment, I'll just put you through to his personal secretary. And I think it was like a minute, Dad waiting on the phone, and the Premier picks up the phone. Con, how you going? And he said, you're not going to believe this has happened. He goes, no. He said, I can't imagine Friday night not being Speedway night at Claremont Speedway. He said, leave it with us. So he made an appointment. He went and saw them, and the Royal Agricultural Society were not keen, but he just requested that they bought some time to allow us to find a new home, and this is all happening because it's like, and we're doing it on the fly. Like what are we going to do? We're going to find a new home, but we need to stay there. So the government said, look, we can't just kill a sport off. It's going to take a couple of years, and I think it took sort of 3 or 4 years of that. But and it's really funny. I give my father his due. The first thing he did after that, he put the phone down. Then he rang Gary Mosevich at Veeam Engineering, and God bless him, Gary's passed away a few years ago now, and he was our original director. And Gary he owned Ravenswood Raceway, the drag strip.
Yep.
So Gary. So my dad and myself jumped in the car, went over and walked into the office, and there's Gary and Peter Pike, who was their then drag racing manager, and Juliet Hawkins, who was the admin person, and we sort of sat down, and Gary was very much arms folded because Speedway was the enemy.
Okay.
Dad said, look, we've been given the lemon and sauce out of the showgrounds, but we're trying to get a new home, but we need to unite. If we're fair income, we got to unite, got to get the sports together. Because if you think you're going to get a venue, because at the time they were changing I believe they were changing the land zoning for Ravenswood.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so they were looking for a new home, and they'd started some stuff with the government. But again, it was the perfect storm if we could get the both together and to build a venue that was going to unite.
Two birds.
Yeah. So that's what ended up happening. And Dad sort of thing, and Gary was not sure at first, and then Gary come on board, and then the then directors of Claremont Speedway decided they didn't have the fight in them to continue doing it. So Gary bought into a business that really had no future. So pretty amazing, like to buy into a company that had no future, because beyond those last couple of years of Claremont, And it's interesting. A lot of the people will say, Claremont Speedway, those last few years were amazing. Well, they actually weren't, other than the grand final. A lot of people were already checked out. Like the crowds were not good. They were okay, but they weren't really great. So it was a bit of a struggle. So financially, the Claremont Speedway company had to, what was negotiated, they had to provide any or all of their profits for the last couple of years to the Royal Agricultural Society. So they basically got. So basically, Claremont Speedway, a company, was just running on
break even.
Just break even.
Cool.
So it was pretty scary time.
Yeah.
But their gift, to the WA public was, we've got this amazing venue, that we've got for drag racing and for Speedway. That's now 25 years old, but they what they did, and look, it was at great expense to my dad. It was like the huge loss, like that he experienced, and Gary was able to sustain it through his Veeam Engineering and stuff like that. But it was really tough on our family. But there was a period where the people of Claremont Speedway punters, the fans, they didn't want to leave. They didn't ask for it. They wanted to stay there. They didn't, Friday night was Speedway night, Claremont Speedway, all that sort of stuff. And Dad had told, Dad was the greatest salesman on the planet. He told everyone Claremont Speedway was the best place in the world. it's not. Sorry to burst your bubble, everyone. It's not. But it was a wonderful, nice rickety old joint, but it was bloody dangerous, and the fence was not to standard. It would have been condemned now anyway. So the romance or the rose-coloured glasses we look through, was great, but not, and So basically the last weekend, the Royal Agricultural Society wouldn't even let us run beyond April. So March 31, 2000 was going to be the last hurrah. It was the end of an era. We programmed a heap of races, all restricted formats for 900 classes of racing.
Yep.
It was just like a mega event.
Which is the one heat feature.
Yep. And there's no way in the world we were going to make the event meet our curfew. It was 10:30 with an absolute 11 o'clock. I think we're still going after midnight. What are they going to do? Kick us out? You know what I mean? So I think it was just before midnight. I think because they wouldn't let us run April 1st. You're out. You get out. So and pretty much the day after we closed, and the place was packed. It was amazing, and it was very raw, very emotional. During that time, I sort of come up with the concept of Hall of Fame, Claremont Speedway Hall of Fame, and during that season we inducted a whole heap of people that were deserved, people that should be in there. So we did that through our sponsorship and marketing, and then we basically during that time we were hitting the ground running with the Motorplex. But when Claremont closed, they hadn't stuck a shovel in the ground at Kwinana, right? So that's March 31, 2000. There's not a shovel in the ground. But they announced where it's going to be, and we're thinking, Kwinana, oh my God. I'm a north of the river guy.
Yep.
We're at Claremont Speedway, we're in the city. The drag racing community are all high-fiving because they're in Ravenswood, and now they're in the bush, and now they're coming to the city.
Yep.
The Speedway fraternity, they've come out of the city, and now they're going to the bush. Same place.
Yeah.
But they've got
the
this
mindset, perception.
Yeah. So, we opened the first night. I think it was 9,800 people there. Lord knows how many other people couldn't get in. There was traffic jams everywhere. The freeway had traffic lights all the way along. We basically couldn't get the people in. We had 3 power outages. Lights went out, overloaded. Opened too early, but we were run on vapor. There's nothing. There was no money. We just needed to open up.
Yep.
New ticketing system, new ticketing, the structure. We had a bronze, silver, gold. Silver, gold were access to the pits.
Yep.
Those sorts of things. So we
yeah.
created this system that we're enjoying so much now. That's the talk of the nation still 25 years later. And so we were visionary in that area, but drag racing had been doing it for a while. So we adopted those scenarios. So so we opened up, had all these problems, and you know what? From then on, the tap just dried up. Like the fans stopped coming. Friday night, Speedway night was just not what they couldn't get there. The freeway was terrible. So basically, after the very next season, I think we went through the first 2 seasons trying to fight the Friday night of Speedway night. We've spent all this money to try, over the 73 years, Friday night of Speedway night. This is the process, and then we've got we're just basically crashing and burning for, which was terrible for my father and terrible for us as a company and terrible for a sport. And the Speedway people were quite angry. They were hating on each other, hating on the sport, but we had enough competitors that were just was okay. We still feeding the beast, so to speak.
Yep.
But we struggled financially, and in the end, we changed to the Super Speedway concept, and then that was in the 3rd season. And my dad just said, "Look, I haven't the fight anymore to do this," but I also acknowledge that Speedway needed to change. We needed to change our formats. We needed to, and Gary was brave enough because he said, "Well, I'm tearing up all this money," and my dad had already, lost a heap, and my mum and my dad and I just said, we just need to change. We need to do something. Otherwise, you don't die wondering, when you race, do you worry about putting it in a gap? You know what I mean?
No, you got to go.
Yeah. So we, my dad just said, look, I haven't got the fight in me anymore. I'm going to step aside. And I was racing, and it was becoming a little bit of a chore for me. You know, I was racing, and I had a great pit crew, but you know, a lot of the stuff was still I was doing it. I was working on the car, and I'd work until 7, 8 o'clock at night at work. Motorplex, so we've got this new track, and we've got sponsorship stuff and all these obligations of events, event scheduling and all that sort of stuff, and then go home and race in. It was probably a horrible time, and I live in that was a great time, but you race in, wife's got dinner on the table, I'd inhale it, and got 2 little boys, like just pretty shit really, and and I'd jump in the car and race off. They didn't get to see me, and then I'm off at the workshop. I'm not bitching about it. It's like I was the one in the wrong. You know what I mean? Just not it wasn't right.
Well, those things just creep up on you. Hey, like you're not aware that you're not spending that, and then you're like, oh, I just need to do this. Oh, I just need to do that. Then a month passes, 2 months, and you're like, I ain't never seen the kids.
No, and it's not right. I mean, they loved it. They loved it, and love watching their dad race. But I'd go to the workshop, and then the boys would get to 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and then they go, we're going home because they're volunteers, right? So I think, I've got to get this stuff done, so because I might not be able to come tomorrow night, or I can, but so I just work until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. We had some great supporters, I was driving for Des Ferris. Des was running Bunbury at the time as well, and he was a good mate. We raced Formula 500s together and did a bit of speed car stuff together. And so I'm driving for Des, and he's great working on the car. He knew his stuff around the car, but they'd all go home, not being rude, but they'd go home because they had jobs as well. And I'd work till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, go home, slide into bed, get up in the morning, get the shower, the kids,
kids,
jam some toast in my gullet and speed off to work, and then go and do that, and I was just doing all the time. So it got a bit much, and because there was no escape for me, and I had the disease bad, had the addiction, wanted to be a part of it, and so I sort of neglected, probably being a good hubby and a good dad, and so at the end of that sort of period, I thought, I need to probably park this up, and so I rang that was the second year, second year of Kwinana, and then I said to my uncle Greg, I said, come back and help me out. Can you just do this stuff, and then I'll wave the white flag and or checkered flag, and I'll bail out, And he goes, yeah, okay. So he come and helped me out, which was great, So I had that last year, and we did okay. I think we finished in 6th or something like that in the series, but we were mainly running 360, but running 360 in open competition. We had some open competition engines from time to time, but not well funded. But it's okay. I know. We took a knife to a gunfight. Who cares? I don't worry about it. I don't worry about it. I mean, I struggle with people not wanting to play at the highest competition. If you don't have it, just do it. You know what I mean? Have a crack.
Well, I'd rather be last out there than in the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I use an analogy. I mean, it's probably a little bit brutal, but king of the shit or shit of the kings. You know what I mean? I'd sooner be shit. I'd be shit of the kings. I'd sooner be that. But I'm having a crack. You know what I mean? And we in that last year, I think World Series come to Kwinana, and we made the A mains out of B mains with a 360. So it can be done. I mean, look, it's very different now. I get it, right? But there's some pretty stout 360s out there. Some pretty stout drivers can do that stuff too.
I find in particularly in the sprint car field, someone wins the race, but there's wins throughout the entire field. Like Daniel Hardigan finished 5th. Like with given his budget and the equipment that he has, like 5th's a win. So Absolutely. He's celebrating. And then there's someone who's, made the feature. That's a win. Like Jack Williamson, his progression. There's wins throughout the entire field. Like that. And like you said, you're running 360. So that's a win for you. So you go home, your sponsors are happy, you're happy. Yeah. You're nowhere near the win, but everyone throughout the field can have a win.
Absolutely. And that's what the game's about, and the purse is on the nose. It's where it should be. You're good, get better. If you're not good enough, get better. If you're not, if you don't want to. But I was never. My dad always said to me, "Quitters never win, and winners never quit." And he taught me that from a young playing footy for everything. And Dad was very gentle man, really, intense on race day, but never, and more running the show. He was pretty intense. Lots of stories, but but a great man. Like, he never ever pressured us. He was always very, very proud of myself and my brother, and his family. He loves, my boys, my brother's kids and his grandchildren, all that sort of stuff. So, he was always very passionate. But the thing is that, he loved the sport and still loves it more than anything. Everyone is a hero that races a car. Every single person that races a motorcycle, whatever, speedway, bike, sidecar, whatever, car racing, he loves it, and everyone is a hero, and that's really cool. Like, his passion for it is immeasurable, and I know I've got my love of the sport from my dad, but also from my mum's support. My mum's the biggest fan of the Motorplex. You got no idea. It was so funny when my dad retired. I was sitting in race control, as the race director or racing manager, and sitting there, and that's where I first started in race control, because I think it's really important to understand all your areas.
Yep.
And I come from a footy background, so I think understand, like, being a coach, and sharing. I think one of the things that a lot of tracks could learn from is other sports, team sports. And
I think about that with crews and footy team.
100%.
Like,
communication.
Is that how you'd speak to a footy team?
Yep.
Well, that's like, no, because that just breeds infighting. That's no good. Like, screaming at someone, that never works for anything, like, under any I always think about that.
There's always time for a spray, right? There is. I give our team a bit of a spray every once in a while, but I always say to them, it's not personal. We just get on. I'm giving you a tune because this is what we need to do. This is what our expectation is. Our expectations are very high. And
the best in the world.
Yeah, and truly blessed. We have got a young team that's just amazing, and every time I get a bit emotional about it, but they're just a ripper bunch, and I handpicked them. I'm not being a wanker, but I picked them because I saw something in what they do, and but I'm an enabler. I'm an encourager, and they're my teammates. I'm I might be their boss, but I'll make the final decision, but I encourage them to come up with stuff. And sometimes they probably think, I've got this great idea, and I go, nah, that's no good, mate. And then they probably be a bit deflated, but I think they enjoy it because the door's always open. The message is always on, and but I think it's really important. So I think just understanding the sport from a racing point of view, understanding it from an official point of view. But I probably moved back to my mum. I was sitting in race control, and my mum, after the first night, I said, how'd Dad go, sitting outside, because he'd retired from commentary,
Yep.
And she said, you got to find something for him to do. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, so I walked up to Dad, how'd you go, Dad? He goes, oh, geez, the track was a bit dusty. And I went, what? He goes, the track's a bit dusty. I said, well, and he said, what you should do is do that. And I said, well, that's not going to happen, Dad. And he goes, what? No, but what you should do is just, get the water truck out and just do it. I said, well, that's not going to happen. We're not doing that. Yeah, but it would help. I said, I get it, but we're not doing that anymore. We don't water the track, and I think he was a bit poopy at me, but then Mum says, you got to find him something to do because he's driving me nuts,
Probably the first time he sat outside. He's been in the box the whole time.
For 40, 50 years, and Mum says, so Dad now, I've got him a gig. It's sort of pretty cool because he goes into the corporate boxes for each night and just goes and says hello to everybody and what we're looking forward to tonight. He sits in the Highline deck and he liaises with people, goes and has a chat with them. Obviously, him and Graham have got their little show.
Not little, it goes good.
Yeah,
talking about Speedway.
Yeah, and they love it, and it's sort of cool, and it comes back to, you look, you guys are, what you're doing here is a great support base for the sport. I mean, what they're doing is great. I mean, they've got a radio show on Bunbury, SEN, and they've got Sport FM here, all supported by, by Speedway family. Frank Scarterfield supports their stuff at Sport FM, and, Maddington Toyota do a little bit of stuff with them, and then they've got the SEN done with Petard Motors down in Bunbury, so all those things. I mean, you think there's not a track in the country that does that. Like we have this stuff. You
No,
know,
like I make money from this, from the sponsors that I have on. I haven't called out tonight yet. I'll try and get to them later. But like I make money from this.
yeah.
And none of them are Speedway people.
No, and that's what's important. I mean, I think, you know, we because you're opening up to the community, and the Speedway public are very, very, they're very territorial. They're very supportive and very caring. And you know, like Frank Scarterfield, great mate, great supporter.
He seems like a legend. He actually flicks me a few messages. He genuinely seems like a legend.
He is just a wonderful guy. He's a very, very, very benevolent guy. Like he's so caring in what he does for this sport, encourages it to grow, puts his money where his mouth is. But, you know,
I've seen old Scarterfields at Optus.
Yeah.
I thought, geez, old Frankie's gone right.
And look, his boys, you know, Jamie and Brent, I mean, what they do, you know, he's got a wonderful, you know, daughter in Tracy, and another son lives in Shane in Melbourne. And, you know, they're very supportive. Frank's very family orientated, but his Speedway is part of his family as well, you know. And he, you know, his support. But, and, you know, for me, you know what? You know, for him, it's actually friendship. It's a relationship. What are we going to do? We go and talk footy. He hates on the Eagles because they're going shit at the moment. And I think he'd like to coach, but I take the piss out of him a bit. So I think, you know, and he sort of says that stuff. But, you know, like it's, so I'm a little bit different. I just sort of, you know, sometimes circumstances, sometimes times needs to heal, change, you know, like in direction before you can, you know, sometimes it's always darkest before dawn, you know, and sometimes it always is. So, you know, Eagles are in that position right now. Yep. So, you know, that's the footy scenario. But Frank is very passionate, great supporter, and he's allowed us to grow our sponsorship stuff. He's allowed the TV stuff to grow because he commits to our Night Thunder program with Dean Neal. So having those supporters access to them, again, it's about relationships and you know, the money they put in, you know, we're reinvesting, you know, and that's what's really important for me to continue to grow the sports. And you know, when we get sort of sorted going forward, the you know, that we'll be able to do that hopefully with drag racing once we get that stuff sorted out, you know.
Mate, with this, what would you be? I feel like I might know the answer, but given the I don't know if your job is your career at this point with as a general manager of the Motorplex, but like would the high limit be sort of the crown jewel so far in what you've done?
Yeah. Look, I'm blessed, you know. 25 years at the Motorplex, was a part of the build process, a part of the planning process. You know, we had a clean sheet of paper on a boardroom that we all got to scribble what our wish list was. The track, my dad and I probably had some difference of opinion, but I reckon we've just nailed it. It's so all those things, you know, it's something that I can be really, really proud of, you know, to the day I'm not here, that I had a part of that little thing. But it was my dad and Gary, the ones that got it. I mean, my dad's relationship and really reaching out to the drag racing community and saying, hey, we got to do this, you know. And it's the old adage, you know, united you stand, divided you fall.
Yep.
And so from that point of view, high limit 100%. Like it was so scary. Like when Brad and I first met over a beer, and then and I sort of got, geez, you know, like I was thinking 30, 40 grand to win, you know, maybe 50 maybe. And then Brad, I said, what are you thinking, Brad? And he goes, oh, you know, I'm thinking 100, and I've got 50 in my head thinking that's top end. He's got 100, and I've just about shit myself. And I've gone, okay, and yep. And then, you know, from that meeting, I met with Jeff Kendrick, and then Jeff, Jeff being Jeff, sort of bulldozed his way to encourage, to make things happen along the way. But, you know, we got obviously Flo involved through High Limit.
Yep.
Brad was very, very complimentary of the way we run our stuff in Perth. And Kyle was as well, admiring from a distance, you know, hence his Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I've got that tweet.
Yeah, and you know, and then Brad and I were sort of we got talking a bit more, and then obviously we kept going with the Maddington Toyota series, and we sort of tried to make it all work. And then I got my ticketing staff together. Emma, I got the most lovely, gorgeous lady who puts our ticketing stuff together, and so we did some numbers, and I thought, shit, we can make this work. Like if we do this, and then I got a bit scared again, and I thought, shit, if this thing don't work, I'll be washing cars on a Monday, and I really like my job. I haven't gone to work a day in my life, in the last 25 years, well, probably nearly 30 years, at Claremont and then into there. I'm thinking, shit, I really like this, And then I thought about it afterwards. I thought, don't be a bloody soft cock, You
bite off
you
and chew.
race, you had to eat an elephant one bite at a time, like, how can we do this? So I come in and started talking to the team, and they were all excited about it. And I said, hey guys, I think we should do this. And the roller coaster, just dealing with all that. And then we sort of locked it all away, and then said, right, let's do this. And some people said, one person said to me, we had a previous board person that sort of said, why are we spending this money? And I said, well, you're not. We're not spending this money. The fans are spending the money. It's the fans, so it's up to us to encourage the people to come. And they go, well, how are you going to make this work? And I said, well, we will release tickets in stages. We'll do a 3-day ticket. Which we did. They sold very quickly. And remember, we were building a new ticketing system in the background during that time. We had the same ticketing company out of America for 24 years, and they pulled out of Australia sort of on the death knock of our thing. So we had to, our ticketing manager, Emma, had to, poor thing, she was many a time coming to my office crying and saying, I can't do this. And I said, you can. You've been amazing. You've got to this step. You can do it because look what you've done. And then she'd go away and feel good again. And I guess I'm the coach, you know what I mean, trying to keep everyone up and about. Yeah. And so we've got this whole thing, and the rest of the team are all helping her with this ticketing system eventually. And we're thinking, shit, we need this money now. We need to sell these tickets now. And even Brad Sweet said to me, because I said, right, we want to launch we're going to launch the scenario, but we're going to tell everyone about it, but we can't sell the tickets. And Brad goes, we shouldn't be doing that. We have to sell the tickets. I said, we can't. We haven't got a ticket system. And so they announced it at Eldora, Kings Royal.
I remember that.
Yeah, so they go and announce it, and then we said, so what we did, we just created a landing page, expressions of interest. If you want to buy a ticket, you want to be the first to know. Log your stuff up. So Chris Mitchell, our ripper little marketing guy, he created this landing page, and next we've got literally thousands of email addresses and saying, lock me in when it happens, and we'll give you a 24-hour head start. So we did that, and when we first got the ticket, he said, we're ready to go. So we're testing it and making sure that the thing's not going to shit itself. And so they pushed the button and bang, overnight, like it was just watching these tickets coming in, and we were selling season memberships. And
can you see those tickets like relatively live?
Yeah, pretty much.
So the whole crew's sitting there, are we getting there? Are we getting there?
And it's exciting again.
Yeah, it would be cool.
We're fans as well.
Yeah.
But again, we can't, people, I make no apologies at the ticket prices, but that's how we pay the prize money.
Yeah.
Ticket prices are what they are. I mean, you got to do that. But
it's world class. Like it's a cheap ticket.
If you don't provide good entertainment, the fans they'll vote with their feet, So what we've got is that we provide good entertainment and create good show that you've got to create FOMO. People don't want to miss out. So, so we've got to, we did that, and it's, and the ticket sales were strong. They all, we're going to have to get a drink, but ticket sales were strong, memberships were strong, and the rest is history. So we end up getting to that. So from my point of view, High Limit, unbelievable.
For me, High Limit was almost like the best and the worst event of the year, because the weeks following on from that just felt like not a come down, but like that was such a massive event. The next Maddington Toyota round just seemed dead. Like you've just had the best sprint car race I've seen, like with how Kyle worked his way into it over the 3 nights, how our boys were good, how J-Max lost how many $100,000 races is he the one, like the hype, how much they actually delivered, like all this stuff here, like JPM did so good with their merch, like all of that, the crowds, the lines, all of that, and then the next night was just back to a normal night, but it felt like a drop back almost. Like, did you guys feel like that?
Yeah, look, it's the analogy I use. It's like having the AFL Grand Final in the middle of the year.
Yeah, perfectly.
So
perfect.
So for us, it's hard because there's always an emotional hangover after something really big happens, and it happens to us as well. But we'd created enough more membership sales than our sports history. There wouldn't be a speedway track probably in the world that sells more season memberships than we did. And what we have achieved is something that that we're very, very proud of. So we were always confident that you get that and then the rest of it will still flow, and there's always going to be the little roller coasters. But probably the event that we're most scared of is Boxing Day, because like 2 days later there's going to be a high limit with Kyle Larson. I reckon probably another couple of thousand people turned up at Boxing Day, more than what we had the year before.
Yeah. Okay.
So there was this thing that people go, you know what, it's getting closer. Oh my God, I just need to go. I can't miss out. I don't want to miss any of it. So from our point of view, it just worked. So and then even flow on after Speed Week had finished, and then we had that sort of 3-week break, which is again the little mini breaks.
Yeah, the micro breaks you were talking about.
Really important. The big teams can go and head off over east. When they come back, we've got Jock and we've got Lockie and J-Mac and stuff like that, and we've got a race, and Barbagallo family, got around it. We've got a $50,000, $40,077 to win, and they've gone. So all of a sudden, our crowd spiked again. So our crowds grew again. For compared to the last year.
Yeah.
So
it is a beast, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're responsible for providing experiences that people want to be a part of, and one thing that Speedway is doing so good here in Western Australia is the social media that the teams have.
Yeah.
We're very, very powerful. We have a massive social media footprint. What Chris does. Originally, funnily enough, our Facebook stuff, when we first started sort of Facebook, we were at about 13,000 people, which was a lot. And then when Dean Neal come on, he showed us a whole new way of growing that, and it grew very quickly, organically, but like up to 100,000. Very quickly, and now we're up around the 300,000, I think, with our Instagram and all that sort of stuff. So it's just growing. But then what's happened is the sport is so up and about, and I guess we're responsible. We're the Pied Piper. We're the one taking everyone on the journey. So get on board. And but the teams they've elevated, like Cricky Motorsports social media, Callum Williams' social media. Then those two teams, their merchandise, unbelievable. And then even the smaller teams, like they've got great social media influence that they can tell the world about. And it took a shift in attitude, because at the end of the day, if the racer is telling people to come and watch me race, the fans become territorial, they become tribal, and they want to be a part of it.
They know them.
Yeah, and look,
and their stories well beyond the podium. That's the thing.
And just like Callum being a great family guy, and the story of Dane, coming from from juniors, and his dad worked on the pit crew of Cricky Motorsport and Bunbury Toyota, and then eventually COVID, what it did for Dane Kingshot. COVID, what it did for Perth Motorplex.
Yeah, Dane might be the only bloke that loves COVID.
You know what? We're very fond of COVID, what we did in Perth, because no one could travel.
Nah.
And we were the only track really around Australia that could do stuff.
Yeah, that's what Ryan said, just the program through COVID. Everything else was shut down, and Motorplex put out a calendar. Yeah. And what we did, though, is we put out a calendar, and we also put out a good purse. Yeah.
And all of a sudden the guy's going, we might have a crack at that. So my little thing was that, World Series was paying $5,000 a win, 5th or 6th was paying $1,000. So let's emulate that. After that, it falls away. Guys, get better, just get better. But we want to make it best we can, and let's try and grow it as we grow together. You know, they all got around it, got racing. The fans all of a sudden started embracing it. You know, now we've got races that are paying $100,000 to win and $40,000 to win, and you know, our high limit prelim nights are $15,000. This year's high limit's $110,000 to win. The Barbagallo race at the moment's 40,000 and 77, and you know, watch this space. You know, we're working with them guys now, and you know, the Scarterfield Smash King of Wings, you know, like it pays $10,000 to win.
That's my favourite race.
Yeah, it's just great.
I love that pistol.
Yeah, and there's other races that we'll work on as well to grow, because that's what's going to make our sport better. So COVID helped us because no one can travel. Monty Motorsport, Luch has been a great mate for a lot of years, but he travelled. He wanted to think, and he should, because World Series was such an important product. It's still, in my opinion, perhaps the most important brand that Australian Speedway's had in the modern era, and yet the people in their wisdom, you know, the peak body of sprint cars decided that they shouldn't do it, and it's been recessed ever since. So that's sad, because it should never have stopped. No way it should have stopped, but it did for political reasons. And now, how do we get it back? You know, and you know, like, for whatever it's worth, I think that World Series. I mean, what's happened now is, you know, we've established our Speed Week's been going since 1982. The Speed Week in the East, South Australia, Victoria's been going for a few years now, but WA Speed Week started by my dad, you know, back in 1982, and you know, Jack Hoddenchild and Jack Hewitt and those guys were running it, and Tim Green. And funnily enough, when we were in America, I refer back to that motel in Iowa back in 1982, you know, in August of 1982 at the Miramar Hotel, yeah. And so, you know, we Speed Week was always going to be that, but what's happened now is we've gone and established something that's really big. And what's so cool about it, and I love the tribal nature of the respective states, that they want to, you know, WA's, they shouldn't be running then. Well, we've always been running then.
It pisses me off. I feel like I've got nothing to do with it. When I see that stuff, like, they're running at the same time, I'm like, it makes me angry. I'm like, get your head out your ass. Like, how long's this thing been going? Yeah.
Look,
do you get defensive around it, or it just is what it is?
No, look, I feel sorry for people when they're a bit misinformed. I don't feel sorry, because they're passionate. It's okay. It's actually okay to have a difference of opinion. It's what it did is it actually helped Speed Week over there in South Australia, Victoria. Their Speed Week grew.
Yep.
So what happened is it great, because it was a call to the arms. Like, the fans, we need to support this. Of course you do. You should always support it. And Australia, you know, it's 3 days drive away. Like, it's not going to affect us. It's not going to affect you. There's going to be fans, you know, a handful, 500 people, whatever, they're going to come here, or 1,000 people or whatever, are going to come here and have a look. But it's okay, because they're Speed Week there, and the drivers that we get are drivers that are that, you know, that probably not going to run there anyway.
Yep.
And vice versa.
You're not robbing from each other, really.
No, and they've got, I mean, if Lockie McHugh wants to say that, it's okay. You know what I mean? If, you know, we got Cole Larson, Brad Sweet, you know, Rico Abreu, you know what I mean? And again, but it's not being criticism. But you know what the cool thing about it is that when they're sitting there watching the thing, when they finish, the 3 hours time difference, they can sit there and watch a replay of it. We're not missing out. You know, it's actually okay for the sport to be doing this. You know, so we're not the enemy. We're not the enemy. It's a united sport. We need to do that. We need to embrace it, and you know, and again, I think that you know, we're just all growing the sport together. You know, and I think what we've done over this last 12 months and probably beyond that, it's probably helped the sport more than ever. And then, you know, look at the Adelaide thing.
Yep.
You know, we assisted in that area, you know, just as bit players, you know, but there was a great team of people there, you know, from the South Australian Motorsport Boards, with the government, stuff like that, to build the track with Alan Barley and his boy Jack, and Adam Curry and what's his name? Obviously the Speedway Australia people, and they had race director over there as well. And then we sort of come in, and Mikey and myself and Mike and I worked together on making sure that we got the track racy, and then we learned a lot of stuff as well. And but the team was great. What we did was great. Like we come as a collective. I mean, that was their government money, but they're doing the thing. But the industry had input into it, and they assembled a good team of people that were happy to work together for the greater good of the sport. And,
That event had no right to be that good.
no,
To throw that track together, to have it in the middle of a city, it should never have been as good as it was. And the first year for it to be that successful, like it shouldn't even race that good,
No.
and it still raced good. Like that was a phenomenal effort to be your first crack at something, but it's probably a byproduct of bringing the right people together.
100%. They nailed it. I mean, what we were at with. I mean, the things that we learned, and I said on the last night we had. We run the dashes and just before the dashes the track was going a bit black, obviously daylight saving and those sorts of things. So I said to him, I reckon, and then Alan Barley came over to me and he goes, "Oh, do you reckon? I reckon I could cut this black off, with the grader." He's a magician and a grader, and he said, "I reckon we could cut this black off, and then we'll get the track back again." I said, "Okay, well, that'd be good. Let's do that." So we did it. And the dashes were just on the last night. The first night's racing was probably better. But I'm talking about the last bit of it. And so he cut that off, and I went, "Oh, that's just so good. The dashes were mint." I said, "Okay, let's do that again for the feature." He said, "We can't." I said, "No, we got it. We got to do that." And he goes, "No, we can't." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Oh, we're in the grass."
Yeah, okay.
I went, "Okay." And I was sort of pinching myself a bit. I thought, "Geez, I should have if I'd known," but we didn't know, and we all didn't know. But if we should have just let the dashes be half shit, and then we could have cut the track, and then the feature would have been not the rubber down one that we experienced. But it's okay because again, it's the strategy of sprint car racing. It's how you adapt and how you evolve into that. And whether the track's not shit. It's just the guy that won's happy.
Yeah.
It's okay. It doesn't matter.
It's an exhibition as well, but it was still, mate, it did the sport a massive service.
Yes. Yeah, so those things are good. I mean, we again uniting the sport, trying to bring them together, I guess, and even back to the World Series scenario, I just feel like World Series. I really believe that that World Series just needs to be different and it needs to look different. Whether they seek my opinion or not, whatever. But I think that I think my strategy would be right, and I think what should happen is they should start World Series in Darwin. With chariots. I
can't wait to hear this guy. Get it in.
And I think that it should go across to Toowoomba, Gladstone, at McCosker's track, down to Lismore if possible, Sydney if possible, Victoria, Warrnambool, Avalon, Tolma, Mount Gambier, Murray Bridge.
Just geographically can make it make sense.
Just run it around, then come to WA. Include Adelaide.
Yep.
Like in November.
Yeah, the Napa.
Yep. A Napa race, and then come to WA, early December or whatever, and finish it right there and then we're the World Series champion. We all get to celebrate. The whole sport gets to celebrate it, and then wherever they go, that's up to them. Then they go and cherry pick the money race. If they want to come to Perth, whatever. If they want to go to up the East Coast or go to Toowoomba or go to Warrnambool, whatever, it's actually okay. But the sport gets to achieve it, and then the sport gets to celebrate World Series champion over the season.
Yeah.
And then what will happen is the tracks can make hay while the sun shines. And look, even back to the statements of we shouldn't be running against Speedway. Well, the tracks. My dad was in the Australian Speedway Promoters Association, was president for I think 20 years. And the tracks always made hay while the sun shines. So when that is from Boxing Day and beyond, that's when every track around Australia, all the big tracks, Sydney Showgrounds, the Brisbane Exhibition Ground, it was Brooklyn originally in Victoria, but also Avalon, Warrnambool, Speedway City was called Speedway Park, Claremont Speedway, they all at that Boxing Day time, that's when their biggest events were.
Yep.
So And they all ran against
And
the
it all
same
worked.
thing. Yeah, it did. And again, some of them might have a big sedan or a big speed car or a big sprint car. So whatever, people would gravitate to it, whatever it is. But so I see that we owe it to the sport to look at it differently. We've done the November until February, and we've done Boxing Day to February. We've done that. It's not on now. We got a chance to rebirth it. Why don't we bring Darwin in? Why don't we, go across and then traverse this?
This makes sense.
And do we need Americans? Well, we've got Lockie McHugh, we've got Jock Goodyear, we've got James McFadden, Australian champ, we've got Callum Williamson, these guys. We've got these great races. The sport's never been in a better position. Kerry Madsen, those guys. I mean, Kerry's on the more mature side, but he's still an amazingly great racer. He is a freak.
But I always think, like, what does Callum and Dane become if they're on the World Series? Do they transition into like almost like a megastar given a platform like World Series, and then like there'd be a narrative that those boys just run at the Motorplex. But what if they go and do good at the World Series, and then next time, and then maybe a guy like, I don't know, Jordan Charge does really good, and then he goes back to wherever he wants to race, and then that event's big because Jordan Charge is World Series, like,
100%.
and it creates the stars from that. So, and that one thing I just wanted to ask you, is there like a number for like US guys, right? So High Limit was massive. Does it change if Rico is there? Like, is there just like a number of, you need, say, 4 Americans and then sort of your crowds and your numbers plateau? Like, if Rico's there, if Carson didn't hurt his leg, are they there? Does it change anything for you as a Motorplex?
Look, I don't. I think yes, no, maybe. It's hard to measure. Yeah. Obviously, all our promotion and everything this year was based around Rico coming and then one little firecracker went astray. But I think when you've got that. We all our promotion was there, but I mean the people were thankfully respectful enough to understand that wasn't our doing. We couldn't avoid that, but it's I think just having a number of Americans is good. I mean, I think the punters like to, they social media is so prevalent now. It's so easy to follow guys. We get messages all the time. Oh, you should bring this guy. You should bring that guy. I mean, and my phone lights up all the time. Our social media lights up all the time on wish lists for the punters. But I think it's as the sport, it's really a small world we live in now because people have access to all that, the flows, the dirt visions, Clay Per View, Night Thunder, the Channel 7, 7 Plus, all those sorts of things are vital. So, I think, it doesn't really hurt us when we get more Americans, but there's some great stories. I mean, you look at Justin Whittle, like he was, I'm not being rude, but he was a no name.
Yeah.
He comes over here, he does pretty well, and all of a sudden now he's running, and he was reasonably good anyway, but he's now running at the front of Pennsylvania. The same thing happened with Randy Hannigan back in the day. People would say, "Oh, who's this guy?" And because the people in the East or whatever, because you'd have to wait for Open Wheel magazine out of America, and but all of a sudden Randy Hannigan went on, and he was always destined. But it fast tracks the profile.
Yep.
Rico's got an amazing profile, huge social media influence. Brad, 5 times World of Outlaws champ, reigning High Limit champ. Kyle Larson, perhaps the most popular motorsport figure in all of America. Guys like Donny Schatz or whatever. I mean, really, in my opinion, the GOAT of sprint car racing, of certainly the modern. But I think if you want to call it whatever it is, people have their opinion. But Schatz was winning races when everyone had the best stuff. Like he was that good. He in my opinion, he's the greatest because he raced against guys that all had the same equipment or the best of best. Their cars, their motors, they're all equal. Whereas Steve Kinser had Carl Kinser, and he had the best motors and the best cars, So different eras, but, that's sort of where it is. And again, those names bring him to Australia. And I think, we've got some rumoured teams coming to Perth this year. I'm still very conservative on it. There's some Eastern State guys, suggesting they're going to come, but it's okay. It's okay if they do or they don't. I mean, because racing for 110 grand a win is pretty, and guys that have won races here, in my opinion, they're foolish if they don't have a crack. But what are you worried about? You know what I mean? Like, it's sprint car racing. We're not handing participation medallions out. It's supposed to be tough.
Was it sort of like, not like you would have wanted anyone in particular? Was it best case scenario that Kyle did win?
I think it was good for him. It was great for us. It was a fairy tale. It was.
That's what I feel. I feel like in 10 years' time, because he won, it'll be a much bigger, better product because he came down and won. I think as a sport, it was almost best case scenario that he came and won.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think, to do what Jason Pride did,
they did a huge effort.
And
him and Cody.
Yeah, I mean, what those guys did, was just unbelievable, and obviously our original connection with Schlam, and then to feed it that way was so cool. And then to get Kyle to get the commitment, Pridey to, put his money where his mouth is. And Kyle's manager is, JP was just amazing to deal with, from our perspective, to deal with flow people, to deal with the high limit people. They're all pinch yourself moments. But one of the things is that, that rings in my ears that Brad continued to tell the people when we were having our teams meetings, I'm trying to get the stuff together, was that, Gavin and his team are very efficient, and that's, we're proud of that, and to listen to that. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I had a text message today from Skip Jackson, and I raced against Skip, and he's a great racer, World Series champ, Australian champ, lives in Knoxville now, and he said, I heard you coming, really looking forward to it. And so he sent me the general manager from Knoxville's number, and he said he wants to communicate with you. He heard you coming, and so I text him, and he comes back. Skip speaks very highly of you. I'm really looking forward to hearing your opinions. And I'm thinking, I'm just a flog from Perth. Who just, we're not curing cancer. We're just watching cars on a Saturday night go around a dirty black track, but
doing it better than anyone else.
Yeah, but again, it's not lost on us that we're in a privileged position. We thrive on what we do. We if I can mention my team.
That is my next segue. Obviously, the award and stuff. So take the floor, mate.
Yeah, look, Mikey Rimmer, he's just a ripper boy. He started off as he was running quarter scale cars. He was Australian champion with the little quarter scale cars and stuff like that. Quarter scale sprint cars with his his mum and dad, Mr. and Mrs. Rim, and he did the track there with the quarter scale club and stuff like that. And I had sadly my track guy, he got killed in a road accident in the northwest, and he was sort of thinking about leaving anyway, but I was struggling with trying to find somebody, and we got a guy in after that, and then it was a bit of a struggle. He had a mechanical business, and he was doing an okay job, and not but and it's sort of really weird because I sort of knew what I wanted, but I didn't know how to get it. I can't drive a grader, but I could drive a tractor, but I sort of knew what the cars wanted, but I just couldn't quite get to it. And then we had a guy come, Steve, who come from, they used to do Claremont Speedway back in the day, so he'd come and give us a bit of a hand, but, the money that we were able to pay him was not very good, so he ended up taking a job up in Mckain or whatever and sort of doing a bit of FIFO and truck driving or whatever. And so, but at the time, Mikey had taken 4 or 5 weeks off on holiday in the RC shop that he was, like the little hobby shop that he was working in.
Yeah, right.
And I said to him, I said, do you want a job, And he goes, yeah, because I think he'd been jack of the hobby shop. And I said, do you know how to drive a grader? And he goes, no. I said, do you want to learn? He goes, yeah. I said, okay, well, you've probably got a couple of days to learn before Steve buggers off, so just ask him as much as possible. But the deal is I finish the track. I finish it because you're too young to cop that heat, and I need to protect you to make sure that you're here. So. And the racers generally mostly trust my decision or my thing. And even if I get it wrong, I'll be honest about it. hey, I didn't get it right, or you didn't get it right, you know. As you do as a race car driver, as you do as a playing footy, as a coach, you know, I was president of a junior footy club for 6 years. I coached for 10 years, you know, junior footy and stuff like that. So you have to own what you're doing. You know, you're responsible.
Make a decision and stick to it. Yeah.
So, you know, we were doing that, and Mikey was just phenomenal. Like, he just learnt. I said to him, part of the deal is, though, you got to go to America and hook up with the Duncan family. And he said, well, my dad and I and Mum are going to Speedway Star tour of the US, and we're going to visit these tracks, and we're going to go to Knoxville. And I said, okay, well, you need to meet this family, and they're the Knoxville track guys. They're amazing, you know. So I said, and he was as shy as hell, like he hardly talked. I said, no, I'm serious. You got to do that, and then you've got a job, you know. So he did it, you know, and he's just this amazing young man now. He's travelled everywhere. He does what he does, and he's our he's the head of IT. He can make stuff. He's the track curator. He's our we've elevated his position to he's pretty much the facilities manager. So he looks after all our facility stuff. Yep. His attention to detail, his pride in his work, his pride in his venue or our venue is just unbelievable. So I can't speak highly enough of him. He's a credit to his mum and dad. You know, we got young Riley. He's our admin person, and he's just a ripper kid. Yeah. You know, he's loves what he's doing. You know, I could see a good future for him doing stuff within our business. So we have to, you know, he can't just be an admin person forever, but we're giving him good grounding. But it's such a cool job. Like he can talk Speedway all day, and I think that's one of the things that everyone's torn with. You know, if they decide that, you know, we've got to find money to go and, you know, escalate life or whatever, you know. But this job is so fun. You know?
That's my overwhelming feeling when you go and sign in and stuff. Talk to Riley, or you see Mikey, or even Ronnie. Like, it seems like everyone's having fun, and when it's business time, it's business time.
Yeah.
But every moment in between just seems like
absolutely
fun.
So when Ronnie, you know, I'd heard that obviously Ronnie was working in the late model club. She's been a racer. I've known her for a long time, since junior sedan days at Claremont Speedway, and you know, as a matter of fact, you know, we were the part of it was my idea originally that started the Smarter Than Smoking Junior Sedan Series back in Claremont Speedway days, because we were sponsored by Quit Healthway, and they had a brand that they were this Smarter Than Smoking brand, and I went to Healthway and said, look, we've got a bit more money, we can put this Junior Sedan Series at 6 rounds, you know, we'll run this thing, and out of that become the JSRA. That came from that, and so we created. And then you know, Ronnie's mum and a couple other people got involved, you know, in sorting the junior Sam stuff out, and we ended up running that for a number of years. And that Smarter Than Smoking Sedan series was just unbelievable, what it did for those people, that grounding that run all the way through. So so I've known Ronnie for a long time. Then she went on to race sprint cars, and then did, you know, the Indy Lights program in the US, and then went on to being a very successful late model racer as well. And but she was in between jobs, and I said, "What are you doing?" And I don't think she was probably thinking that this was a job interview, but I just said, "You know, mate, do you ever thought about maybe?" Because, you know, for me, it's really important to pass the library on.
Yeah.
You know, is it a legacy thing? I don't know. I think it's really important. I think I look at what my dad's done, the amount of people that he's mentored, and, you know, the Wade Oranges and the Dean Neals, and that he's nurtured along the way. And I think that's really, really important. So I don't know whether that's me or whether it's my footy background or whatever it is, but I just think it's really important. So I just said to him, you know, do you want to? And, you know, I said, look, it's a great job. You know, it's just fun. And I said, look, you're not under pressure to stop racing. You'll know the time. So at the moment, she's Speedway operations, and when she stopped racing, she'll become, you know, if she wants to, and I'm pretty sure she does. Hopefully she does. She becomes the Speedway manager. But, you know, I could almost see her running the business, really. You know, because I think that administratively she's a lot better than I am.
Yep.
I'm very much a cheerleader for the venue. I'm very much the people that everyone wants to talk to me. I get it, and I've very much open door, open book. So I think it's important to do that, and. But each one of these people have got a great skill level, and, you know, and then we've got Obviously Chris Mitchell, does a great job with his marketing and he's a little bit of, he's a little nerd with all his RC stuff
Loves
that he plays
that.
with, and he does, he's done a bit of car racing over his career, and his race commentary is good fun, and so we certainly got him on board, and he's grown, and we've allowed him to grow. He does all our social media stuff, but also the advertising, budget, advertising stuff, and deals with our the stations and media partners. So he does all that. Obviously, I oversee it, but he's just, again, I'm not a micromanager. I trust and value, and might pull up and say, oh no, that doesn't work. Tried that, and I I don't like to do the told you so stuff, but sometimes you just have to go, look, let's just cut to the chase. That part doesn't work, and this is the reason why. We've tried that, but let's do this. Or hey, shit, I really like that. Let's have a crack. So, but and I'm very much understanding of that. And then we've got Emma, our ticketing manager, and she's just amazing. I've already spooked about her. And then Jen, we've got a lady that does all our bookings for venue hire. Riley Paps, he's just a ripper kid in our production. So he does all that, does all the video stuff, does our ads, puts them together and all that stuff. So that's all in-house. So it's all pretty heavy duty. And then we've got Jamie, who does operations, which is from a venue point of view, so like a security, medical, those sorts of stuff, and gets all those sorts of things organised. Great teammate. You've got Ray Treasure, our drag racing manager, and Sharpie, who's the caretaker and yard work, and does a bit of drag prep. So we've got a rather large team. So we're a big little business.
Yeah, there's a lot of cogs in there.
Yeah, and it's a good team, and the Speedway guys are just so passionate, and I don't reckon any of them come to work thinking, oh shit, it's a work day. I just think they all get there.
Yeah, I feel looking from afar, it hard to be bored.
Yeah,
there'd always be something going on.
Well, there's always, and I share everything with them. I get a phone call overnight, a phone call overnight or a message from overnight, and I'll get in the next morning. I'll say, hey guys, I've got this message, and they just go, so they're all up and about. And I think that's really important, to bring them in and nurture them and give them that encouragement, because it gives them that inside knowledge. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of them. But then you go even further. We've got this. You look to our volunteers. You've got your scrutineers, your Peter Cox, your Matty Bosveld. Those guys are so happy. I mean,
middle of summer, I always think about them lads. In the middle of summer, they just always, every single car throw on the spanners over at check-in.
It's just a huge job. I mean, but there was a time where we weren't as welcoming, and I hate that. We're in the people business. It's all about encouraging
the guys on the pit gate, exit gate.
Got to put a smile on your face.
Even that scrutineering guys, scrutineering's over. Then it's like a little community meeting. Like they don't go watch. The TV's on. There's dinner. I've seen like lunch boxes come out. Like the races are happening, and there's this little crew of people in the scrutineering shed having the time of their life.
Yeah. And I think everyone looks forward to it. I mean, I'm sure sometimes it's a bit of a chore when it's hot or whatever, but we've got a great pit manager in ET, and he's been doing it 100 years, and Jack, ably assisting. But what's so cool though, I've always said to our guys, don't ever think that no one's replaceable, but we've always got to make sure that people know everyone's role. So in the event of an old shit happening or someone can't turn up, we've got someone that can fill the role. And I think, it's like, it's again, I use the footy analogy.
System, I was going to say, system-based.
You got to run a guy, if they're going to run off the bench, hey, you're doing this, but hey, you're tagging this week, or you're to run with, you're the guy who's, you're on the ball now, and it's hard because we've got a few people that want to come out of the infield, but I'm very, very selective of that, because I think it's a volatile, can be dangerous, and I'm forever reminding our team to head on a swivel, don't turn your back, but it's hard because you've got the best spot in the house. You've got this great environment, and then we run a sprint car work area, and then you bring,
and then one incident could change everything as well.
50 other people that have all got egos, and 50 people that have all got an opinion. and
and an agenda. Like they're only looking at their car. They're not looking
And I've got to look after the 24 cars plus we've got our stewarding team, our race control team, Scott Beattie. What he does for us, he puts the program together and does all that stuff is just absolutely phenomenal. At time, with our timing, we've got great announcers. So we are truly blessed. Got a great team. And I think that the juggernaut. We just got to keep the juggernaut rolling. And for mine, 25 years is great. And over time, as Ronnie, when she, like I said, no timeline on her stopping racing because obviously she should be hindered this year because of her injury. But when the time is right, I said to her, "You'll know the time's right, but I'm not going to tell you when that is. You need to decide." And but I wanted to keep racing because you're a long time retired, So it's good.
I had a few questions that have come in, and I've sort of had something come through my mind now. The sprint cars here, I think, like the Maddington series is like the best series in Australia, the best domestic series. Do you think that the work that's gone into like the late models and the speed cars, almost I wouldn't even know where the other late model like hub would be or the other speed car hub? Like there's no one flying from WA over to race speed cars over as they come here. Like are those, and they'd obviously be the 2 and 3 overall, but like how much goes into developing them to make sure that they're like so as strong as they are? Does it just naturally feed, or do you guys work on that?
No, we work with the respective groups. I mean, look, the sprint car, like I always said to the people, if you're a late model guy or a speed car guy or a wingless guy, don't be pissed off that the sprint cars are getting whatever they're getting, as in fan base or publicity or whatever. Because, using our AFL analogy, all the competitions feed off the AFL, like the Waffle, the Sandful, the VFL. Yeah. All the publicity is out of the AFL, but everyone feeds off it, and there's got to be a pathway. Now that's not necessary in Speedway. The pathway doesn't have to be there. You can be okay with late models. You can be okay with speed cars, Formula 500s, or wingless or whatever. It's actually okay, but you can feed off the carcass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the reason why we're on TV is our investment with the Sprint Car Entrance Group. They believe in it. They've pushed it. Jeff Kendrick has pushed it. We've certainly endorsed it and supported it. And now, guess what? All the classes that race, they all get a piece of the action. They're all on there. Yep. They're all getting on there now. So what they do with it is up to them. If they want to try and get sponsorship or whatever, and over time, that'll help. So the late model group is probably very, very strong. They had a great committee, in particularly Ronnie and Craig Nylander and Craig Vosbergen, but Ronnie and Craig Nylander, what they did with late models and the marketing and the promotion and the sponsorship stuff they've done. So again, that escalates because there is an element of competition, and that's okay, a bit of healthy rivalry, but not at the expense of again, I use the analogy: divided we fall, united we stand. So you don't have to bag sprint cars out if you're a late model fan. You can just say, I'm really looking forward to seeing the late models this week as well. That's okay, but you don't have to slag off sprint cars or speed cars because it's speed car title week. Get around it. Say I'm really looking forward to racing a high limit. Now the thing is, I've got that many classes that want to run high limit. Why? If the vibe of the room is I want to bag out the sprint cars, then what do you want to be on high limit for? Well, because it's a big crowd. Well,
it provides a showcase.
So that answers the question. Yeah. So get around it, embrace it, and again, just unite. We are Speedway or motorsport in general is a very, 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 very powerful medium. You think about all the motorsports. Whether it's supercars, whether it's road racing, whether it's speedway racing, drag racing, burnouts, rally, all those things. If you have all those things collective, motorsport is a very, very, very powerful thing. But it's really hard because everyone will have an opinion. I don't like speedway, I don't like drag racing, or I don't. You never the twain shall meet. But they should because they're not in competition to each other.
I've got some questions. I'll get rid of them here now, mate. We've been going 2 hours. Let me find these. I had to screenshot them all because I couldn't write them down. I think there might have been a bit of a lunch break at the Motorplex today. First question I've got here. I'm not going to read some of the names out. I'll see if you can guess. Why can't the crew bring curry into the office for lunch?
They can't because I'm not, I'm a Crohn sufferer, and I'll tell you, if you walk in there with a curry, I'm shitting my pants.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair.
But I'm not.
So medicinal reasons.
Yeah, but I've grown to very much dislike it, and my wife loves curry, the poor thing, and she. But if I'm out like tonight, I'm sure she's enjoying a curry. She's probably enjoying that when I'm not there, and if I walk in the house and smell it, it's like, oh my God, have you really done that? But yeah, that's what it is, and the team know that they don't bring it in.
And Taylor Milling wanted to know, can we have the calendar already? And then, well, you produced with that. You got that about 2 hours after he sent it.
Yeah,
that's when that come out. And then David Priolo, why did you used to wear plastic bags on your boots?
That is a bloody good story. I was driving for a car that the car had that many oil leaks on it. And,
you're kidding.
And I actually had, I was sponsored by Revolution and RPM suits, are brand new race suits, and this thing was leaking. It was like the Exxon Valdez, dripping all over everything. So I grabbed the rubbish bags out of the bin at Claremont Speedway and pulled them up my legs and then race taped them to my thighs, and like completely
You're
stupid.
a wild man.
But I did that because I didn't want to wreck my suit, because if you're pouring oil into a suit, like I always say to people, I used to sell race suits, and I used to say to people, you've got this thing, would you go to work on your car in your tuxedo? Like at the time, a tuxedo would be $1,000 back then. You can get it from Whitey's or Connors or Tarakash or whatever now for $199 or something. But at the time, it was like $1,000, and you got this $1,000 race suit, and all these guys are groveling underneath the thing, get covered in shit and getting oil dripped all over them. And I'm thinking, that's just silly. You're creating a wick for a fire. You're wrecking your race suit. So I just said, and then this is happening. I'm putting a bag in, and get in. And after each race, I'd just peel the bag off, go and find another bin at the track, and then slide it on and race tape. So that's that story.
Mate, Dave Priol is a legend. He's a real funny bloke. He sends a few zingers in, mate. Got us a BJ Harris 87. The sprint car collector cards, are they coming for the Maddington Toyota series?
Good question. I have watched with interest the banter in the East about it. I think one of the things is I really don't think the industry needs to be fearful of things that are going to help grow their sport. You know what I mean? If someone's doing a collector card for them and someone's getting an earn out of it, well, then let it grow and then crack in after that. But let it try, because most of those things, with respect, haven't worked, but these look really quality. They appear to be good. So why not just jump on board and see whether it can grow?
And then Stephanie Risley, what are the pros and cons of running an event like High Limit? Like, is there any cons to how big it is? Is it just the man hours and the actual input it takes, or is it just all pros?
Look, all pros. I mean, the times is what it is. I mean, what we sort of try to put in as much effort during the winter, in the off season, to try and do those things. But look, it's a huge thing. It's a big risk, and that's the thing that's frightening. But what we're really proud of is 91% of the tickets for that event were purchased online.
Yeah, right.
So 91% of the tickets were purchased online. So that meant before
there's an appetite for it. People are investing early. Yep. Yeah, that's awesome.
So from our perspective, there's that. I mean, we've already sold. Basically, the gold area is the 3-day gold area is all but sold out already. There's only a few tickets here.
Ones.
On their own, and then the silver ones are roaring as well. So, and then our memberships as well, just going good.
Todd Jr., what's the craziest plan that never come to life? Like, have you had a big pipe dream that for the Plex or an event that never came through?
Yeah, I'm still on my wish list. I'd like to do a 100-lap late model race, but I want it with a pit stop, and I want it with a pit stop under green. So if you come in, you've got to come in and you've got to take a wheel off and put a wheel on. You can refuel, but we're talking like if you refuel, and you've got to be wearing, race suit, safety equipment.
Yeah, like a F1 sort of.
Yep. So certainly
that would be sick.
Yeah, so I want to do that. Like, you'd qualify, as in there'd probably be a hot lap session, qualify, and then we're doing 100 laps.
100 laps.
Yeah. But it's got to be raced, and then you've got to come in under green. You can come in and maybe the pits is closed for 20 laps or 30 laps or whatever, and then you can come in, and then you can use your strategy. How far can you go, tank-wise? But you have, some cars perhaps could go the 100 laps because there is some races over. So I'd like to see that at some stage. But, again, it's sort of stuff with Speedway Australia, and I've spoken to the last couple of CEOs about that, and they've had a nervousness about it. But, at the time it's sort of it's not going away. It's an itch that I need to scratch. So I want to look at it, and maybe we do that with maybe we do that with sprint cars or something like that, where they have to come in. But if they come in under green, we've got enough infrastructure, with safety, with the barriers and the road system, the merger freeway.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, with Scotty. And so we've got enough systems there. But what it would be is the sprint cars would come off the racetrack, say off the end of the back straight, roll around, and then come off to turn 2, and then pull up, stop, and then the utes would be ready come around shunting, and then they push them to their pit bay, stop, and then pull a wheel off, change wheels, whatever, no penalty, and then drop it down, push off, and then go, and then come back on as an option. Now the sprint car one could be a bit. There's certain things, there's certain criteria, because races are generally selfish. Like they'd pull a stoppage if they could, But again, the late model thing interests me because they have clutches, they can roll in, and then what they do is we'd come in off the track, pull up at the thing, they'd have to stop, and then chug it into the right gear, and then go to their bay, stop, and then do what they've got to do, the work on the car, and then chug out, and then there'd be entry points on the track, so the racers would know when they're coming on, and we're getting our our big screen's good now, so we've got we get the ticker working, so fans can look at it, the apps on their phone, so they can track the order. So I think that's my little thing that I wouldn't mind doing.
That's way better than what I thought you were going to say. That would just be all time if you did. I had late model 100 lap race. I reckon that'd be awesome. RM 3960. I'm not sure who it is, but I think you might. What are your thoughts on 4th and 5th place trophies?
There should be a ban on it. If you're not good enough to get on the podium.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, it's just 1, 2, 3. And F1 Olympics. It's just basic. We've got to stop. There's no participation medallions in this game. It's Speedways. I want it to be elite.
Yep.
It's got to be elite. Top 3. I remember Neville Lance saying to me one day, the speed cars are racing for $4 or $5 grand or whatever in total prize money or whatever it was, and Neville says you should just put it all on the nose. And I thought to myself, you know what, that's. And I'm not saying we're doing that, but I thought about it afterwards, and Nev goes, I'll back myself in to win a couple of those, and I'll be a few nights where I'm not. I don't get $1,
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, it's again, speed cars are an A. It's a pro class, Late models are pro class, sprint cars pro class. So, back yourself in, And I think why WA is so strong is we have a lot of very successful businessmen running their race programs, and there is money here, but these guys, the reason why there's money here, these guys are workers. These guys are very successful in what they do. They're very strategic in what they do. They're successful. They look at their race teams, what they do, the way they present themselves. I mean, the transporters that the sprint car teams have just blow the V8 supercar transporters out of the water, and the supercar transporters look good on the outside.
Yeah.
And they might have a good, nice prime mover pulling the thing, sponsored by whatever. But our trucks and stuff like that are just next level,
And the amount that we have, not 1 or 2, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, probably 10, 12, 15,
Mate, your man, Chris Mitchell, cats or dogs?
Hate fucking cats.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Yeah, he's got a cat, and he shouldn't have. I mean, it's a friggin' mountain lion, and he comes into work and he's got cuts all over him because this cat's just wild. I said to him, mate, they're
rack that.
Yeah, So sorry, Brittany, or Brittany as we like to call her. That's his partner.
Ronnie, why don't you call them 410 sprint cars?
I hate that.
I had this question in, and the whole time I've been waiting, you've never said it. What do you call it? Open divisional?
No, I said open competition.
Open competition.
Yeah, because
that's what it was.
And I don't necessarily like that statement either, but it's sprint cars. They're sprint cars. You don't say, 1.8 litre Formula One, do you? It's sprint cars. Like all the other classes, like if there's 360s or LLS or whatever, they can put the Yes, you know,
they're the
commentator.
asterisks.
Yeah, but it's sprint cars. Like,
That makes sense. I like that.
To me, I hate the statement 410s because like it again. Let's go back to F1 and NASCAR or whatever stock car. NASCAR, it's NASCAR. You don't, you know, the Xfinity. Okay, you know that's the one at the second tier. You know,
that's the asterisk. The explanation is an asterisk, isn't it?
So it's cup racing is the main game, and sprint car racing. You know, we don't say the Maddington Toyota 410 sprint car series because what and, you know, if you're a passing person, you getting involved,
like a sub class.
What does that mean? You know, like 410. We know it's 410 cubic inch, but you know what? Who cares?
Okay, that makes sense. Now I thought it was going to be funny, but now you're bang on. You're exactly right. I'll never say 410 again.
And again, I use the analogy for late models too. When you know there was the guys would be running crate motors and stuff like that, and I just said no. It's your choice to take a knife to a gunfight. It's late models. That's what the class is. If you choose to do that, and they're competitive, like the Oldfield brothers have proven that they can win races with a CT525. You don't need to be negativing your class. Why are you doing that? You know, it's the Speedway sedans elite. Why are we down talking it down?
Yeah,
like, you know, you could say by all means say we've got a little engine tonight, but we're good. So a little engine might mean just a little bit less cubes, a little bit more less horsepower. That's okay because you're telling the story. But for you to say that this is a CT525, then what does that mean? Because no one knows what it means, you know. And then you can run up into a 430 cubic inch all aluminium, 900 horsepower beast. Again, well, that probably sounds a bit better, but then all of a sudden you've got. So I just think that, you know,
there's division within it, and it confuses people. Yeah,
don't need that,
mate. Chris has had a big lunch. Your biggest blow up on the infield. What's your thoughts on driver intros?
I'm not a real fan of driver intros. High limit is okay, right? It's that one thing we do. I don't like driver intros because it's like trying to herd cats. It's impossible.
Seems awkward. It is when they do it at the Classic. It just seems a bit awkward. Hey,
it's just garbage. And you know what? It's just a load of pompous BS. And, you know, I'd sooner spend more time celebrating the winner at the end of it.
Yep.
Get around it. Get the fans come out. You know, allow the fans to come out and get around and celebrate it like we did with High Limit. So we have the best of both worlds. We did the intro. But the reason why that works so good is we do the fireworks, we have the light show and all that stuff. And, you know, we'll escalate that again. But I hate the unnecessary time that it takes to do a driver introduction because we, as a racer, as an ex-racer and still very much a racer at heart, when you race, you become very selfish and I'll go when I'm ready. Or you won't because we need you now. You know, come on, guys, we're getting under pressure now. Yeah, I'm getting in. You need to saddle up. And then they're still standing there talking shit, you know. So get in the car, come out, put on a show, then take your time.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. What have I got? Damo Lyle, the street stock man. Did you see that race when he was on the wall?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, love it.
That's one of my favourite races I've ever seen. Anyway, he wants to know how many cars do you think you're going to get to the 2027 national title at the Plex, even though submissions only opened last week.
You know what? I really hope we'll obviously put in a submission for it, whether that's public or not, but we will. I'm a huge fan of the street stocks. Their racing is just phenomenal. I think our track is made for it.
It doesn't seem like it should be, but it is. Hey, it's so good, that racing.
Yeah, and we as a team would be privileged to have that opportunity to do it. If we could get it, I mean, I'm sure we would showcase it appropriately. I think we would make it. We'd probably do it like a 5 day, 5 days in
2, 1, 2.
Yep, and just make it a big street stock week. And really showcase street stocks the way that they should be. And don't get me wrong, the club tracks and country tracks around Australia and the state, they do a great job and they serve the community, the sport very well. But the thing is what's important is that what we think we can do is by escalating it, we can help them. And it's Australian title, but again, it's we would be privileged if we did. If we didn't, we'd be disappointed. But we'll move on and do something that we have.
I've never seen slide jobs in a street stock.
Yeah,
like back to back, like every corner slide jobs. Damo's ripping the wall, mate.
Yeah.
And then the state title this year was like amazing. the multiple lines. Like you just don't get that, and the Motorplex just provides the place for those guys to put on the most epic races.
Yes.
You've mentioned him before, and I've got a question here. What's your fondest memory of Johnny Fenton? Like I only know Johnny as Roey's granddad, like, but he seems to be not a cult figure, but like the biggest star ever. Like it's just Roey's granddad. Like, and I've spoken to him a few times, but he seems like a legend. What's your greatest memory of Johnny?
Johnny, you know, I'm privileged to have some racing heroes that are my friends. And as a young kid growing up, Johnny Fenton was the greatest for mine. As a super fan, but my dad was good friends with Johnny as well, and still is to this day. And I love the fact when John rings or I ring him or whatever, I love to have a chat and call him Young John, and I think he likes that. But he, as a young kid, I got a photo somewhere. My mum's probably got it, and I'm sitting in his black, Sesco number 7 with the gold leaf on it with Amco, the jeans company on it, and I'm sitting in at Peter Roebuck, as a matter of fact, took that photo. It was black and white at Forestfield Speedway, sitting in the car. Like, how cool is this on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon or whatever it was? Johnny was testing his new car ready for Claremont, and so for me it was always like John was my hero, number 7. Hence I raced number 7 a few times.
Yeah, right.
So that was why I wanted to get that, but. John was so good. Like he could race a speed car and then get in a sprint car, and he'd basically get out and just do unbelievable stuff. He was just a freak of a driver, unbelievable what he could do in a race car, and to have that. So again, those friends. I mean, Alf Barbagallo, another hero of mine, and still friendly to this day. Mick Mckain from a solo's point of view. Graham Jones, a great mate, but also from a hero point of view. Dennis Nash, sidecars. So I had these. Johnny Anderson in Formula 500s, I had these heroes that I used to worship, but they're all my friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that to me is just so cool to have that, because I'm a super fan. Like when you get a message, and Kyle Larson, when he says that that video that we played of our end of season, and he goes, the Motorplex might be in the top 3 tracks in the world, and there was this pause, and then he goes, it might even be the best. And that's not lost on me. We were privileged. We're just the current custodians. We're just holding it to what we're doing, and what I'm proud of my father and what we did is to make sure that we've got this legacy that for the sport, not our legacy, but the sport for them guys. And my dad promoted for 32 odd years or whatever he did at Claremont, and then I've 23 odd years, 25 of as working there, but the 23 or whatever it was, and Dad did the first 3 years. So I guess for 50, nearly 60 years, I guess there's been a Migro running Speedway here, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a loyal thing. I think we're passionate.
Look at the product; it's a very good thing.
Yeah. So,
I just with Johnny, I remember the thing that made me think he must have been like a proper wizard. I said to Roy, it's like, how good was this bloke? Like everyone talks, he goes, he was sponsored by Qantas.
Yeah, Ansett.
Ansett
Airlines of Australia and Amco, which was a jeans company, right?
Yeah, that's
massive.
huge.
And then Thermo King, like the refrigeration mob. He was sponsored by. He had all these sponsors that were just like you could not imagine.
Yeah, right.
He'd get flown all around Australia racing his car. He raced in America. He raced successfully over here. Like he won his Australian title. I think it was a 2-round Australian championship, and he had to race an asphalt at Liverpool and had never done it before, and then goes out and wins it at Liverpool. Like that's just freaky,
Yeah.
So amazing, talented steerer, what he could do, and just a good bloke. A larrikin, loves a beer, and just a larrikin. But I'm absolutely proud to say that fabulous Johnny Fenton is a good mate. So.
And then just 2 more. Do we know if the Motorplex is going to get scanned for iRacing at any point? Jared Culshaw, All Talk Engineering, get your engines in.
Yeah, we actually we signed up for it, but iRacing they had to put the handbrake on it for a period because they're putting all their energy into NASCAR, I believe.
Okay.
So we had actually signed up for it, and they were all but good to go, and then they had to put the park brake on. So, a little bit disappointed, but, it is what it is. It's just a game, I guess.
And then the last one, obviously given the result at the last election here in Western Australia, there's the kart track, the dirt track. Like, what are your visions for that? Where's that at? And how excited are you for that? Because I think it could be just another feather in cap. Like, you guys have just won 3. Is it track?
Yeah, it's
tracks of the year.
Australian
Like,
Speedway Track of the Year. Yeah,
these things are
in a row.
like, how are you going to beat it if that gets implemented? And like, how excited are you? And where's the dirt track at?
So it's wonderful. I mean, the Cook government was an election promise to put new LED lighting in, an outlaw kart track and club room upgrades, and they committed to that if they got in. So obviously that takes it takes a number of months, and that could be 12 months, 18 months. But the commitment is there, and they will honour it. As a matter of fact, just before I got here, I checked a message and basically given us some timelines. So I would expect that that at some stage, maybe towards the end of 2026 into 27, that the outlaw kart track would be done properly. They really want to do it properly. I was hoping that it was going to be this year, but we can't rush the process, right?
For the sake of 1 year.
Yeah. But I think the end game will be great. So the plan is to build that track over behind the back straight. So we'd have a mini motorplex exactly over the back. So the selling point for me was that when we got asked, what do you want? We had a clean sheet of paper. I said new lights. I said obviously drag strip replacement, but we were always on the understanding that was already happening in the background. The replacement of the strip, and then the new LED lighting for both sides of the business for speedway drag racing, pits, road systems, that sort of stuff, and then club rooms. So with the outlaw kart track, and then they sort of said, "Why do you're a speedway guy? Why do you put that on?" I said, "Well, look, drag racing can host up to 200, 300 teams. Speedway is probably limited to maybe 100 and something." Unless we're running marathon events, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think, you've got to move with the modern times, like Big Bash, 3 hours, AFL footy, 3 hours, Speedway
in and out.
4 or 5 is still probably borderline, but, 12 hours is just like madness, But again, how do you process the cars and bikes and stuff like that? So, they're the challenges of sports. And then you've got the outlaw kart track. And I said, well, it'd be really cool. I think there's 60, 70 of them now, or 50, 60 of what of them are now in Western Australia, racing with a track, which is great. It's wonderful that Pinjar, they have an opportunity to keep their little wheels ticking over. But if we build something purpose-built, I reckon within a short amount of time we'll get 100. So you tell me that there would be a speedway track in the world that could be hosting 200 race teams on the day. And they went, okay, that's a great analogy. And I said, well, it's a great example of why I've said that we should do that, because then what we're doing is we're providing racing opportunities for potentially 200 race teams, and our facility can hold it. We can also provide a breeding ground for stewards, lap callers, commentators, that sort of stuff.
Pathway
to the big show.
Yep.
And it's another opportunity where people can come in, do that, and then hang around for the main show or whatever in that. So I think from that perspective, it's just a no-brainer. The LED lighting, the same thing, but there's a whole process that you have to go through, and the government process. And again, if I may, on the drag strip, we the track developed a bit of a hump in it that it needed some attention. They put a bit of Band-Aid on it last year, where we replaced a section, but the track was coming towards the end of life. We thought maybe get one more year, maybe not. But as it turned out, that's not possible, because the bump was quite prevalent, and according to the data on the race cars, it was starting to show.
Yeah, right.
So basically, we basically got told that we couldn't race drag racing. It was actually that critical. We can't race. So it was pretty, and that's scary, because I'm thinking, shit, what are we going to do now? We've got this whole sport there, and so thankfully our relationship with the government. The Cook government, very supportive. It's his local electorate. Roger Cook's just absolutely been a great supporter of us in Kwinana.
I always wonder what they think to come to something like that. Like when he went out and spoke to Callum and that. to see that for the first time from the infield from someone who probably has never seen anything like that, it would blow your mind.
And he loved it. He sees what we're doing.
Yeah.
He sees that we're trying to do that, and it's grassroots, and it's, you know, we're very strong. It's great for Kwinana. The city of Kwinana, we have a great partnership with them now. They're very much on board. So, you know, really, let's face it, it's probably the greatest thing in Kwinana.
Yeah.
And we're proud of that. We've got that connection. So with that, you know, thankfully the minister and the treasury and all that sort of stuff got around it with Venues West, and we're able to get them to reinstate, to bring the funding forward to replace the track. So that's in addition to the
Everything
else. And then also there's the off-road area, which is technically, whether we're associated, but it'll be probably in our precinct, and that'll be like a dirt bike and off-road four-wheel drive sort of area that can be used as for general public. So those things are all part of the precinct, and whether we're part of the operation is still yet to be determined. But those things, I think, are just going to continue to future-proof the venue, and once that gets done, then I'm very confident. And there's element of impatientness from our point of view. We're a bit impatient. We want to get the outlaw kart track going. But I think if we're just patient, and we'll get it growing, and then it will be a great it'll be a great thing for the venue and for us going forward, and then we can really showcase what we're doing. We're very grateful for that relationship, and I think if we didn't, you know, like, I'm proud of our team, and, you know, obviously I've, you know, been able to build a great relationship with the Premier, you know, to communicate with him, have regular messages with him and stuff like that. It's a bit pinch yourself, you know, like we're, you know, and it's
rubbing shoulders.
Yeah. And you know what? I
How does it go saying, Roger Cook, do you want to come to the Speedway? Oh, I can't even get my missus to come.
No, it's a different. You know what's funny? Like, when we message, we sort of message. I do the right protocol. You go through their electoral office, and then all their the
channels.
Yeah. But they, even when I've messaged him himself, he goes, "Sounds good. Can you send me an email? You know, or that sounds promising. I want to come." And it's really cool, like, to sit there and go, "Jeepers," you know,
flick a message.
Yeah, and you know, he's sent messages to us as well, and you know, when he comes for High Limit, you know, like, and they, you know, we wanted to come for High Limit, and he came for the Speed Week finale, and then he come on the grand final after he won the election, and you know, I think it's so important that we build relationships with that, and you know, we're not political by any means. We just want to look after our sport, and
whoever's putting tracks and lights up, mate, that's what I'm with.
Yeah, and look, you know, I think the election promise was somewhere in the vicinity of like $80 million or whatever towards motorsport venues in Western Australia. That's cool. It started off, you know, he had a minister come and see us and sat down with us, and it was sort of 12 months in the making. And they travelled around Western Australia visiting, you know, go-kart clubs and motocross clubs, and, you know, speedways, and, you know, off-road, all that sort of stuff, and just got around to try and find, you know, what they need to do. They basically to create a paper. Yeah, right. And for them to go and do that, and, you know, hence the, you know, even the supercars at Burswood in the parklands in the city, it's a no-brainer. I went to Adelaide. What that does for the community in Adelaide is just unbelievable, and it should be. It's get on with it. Let's do it. I reckon it's just great. You know, it'll be mint.
And then we'll wedge off it just like Adelaide did. But mate, that's 2.5 hours. What's crazy? I feel like I left half my questions off. I could keep going more. So I guess we'll just put a pen on it and say chapter 1, mate. We'll do another one. But Gav, really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I can't wait for Speedway season.
No, thanks for the opportunity, and you know, thanks for everyone that's supporting your show as well. I think it's a great little community thing for it. So thanks. Yeah, there's a BKB
Plumbing and Cast, Brody.
Good on you.
Regan Smith, everyone. Thanks, guys.
Good on you.
See ya.